All right, it looks like we are live here, guys. What is going on? Welcome to yet another episode of the Xbox Roundtable podcast. This is show number 261. Naturally, I'm Invader, your host for the evening, and I am really looking to get into the chat tonight. Um, after taking last Sunday off, we are back in action and ready to talk about, well, lots of things, to be honest with you. Microsoft has come out and clarified its statement on Game Pass affecting game sales. We will certainly dive into that juicy topic right there. As well, the ongoing saga of the acquisition of Activision. Microsoft will very soon be defending its position on the EU hearing. Is that a major hurdle approaching? Well, we'll find out very soon. And of course, we have to discuss as I'm calling it, the Discgate fiasco regarding the confusion of Redfall's disc status with physical games. But yes, we will get into all that wonderful stuff. But first, I gotta introduce everybody here on the panel, kicking off with TXR. Buddy, great to see ya. How you been?
Great to see you guys. Been good. Just been busy with work and life and parties, Super Bowls, crazy. It's been pretty much the same on the Xbox front. A lot of stuff coming on Game Pass. A couple of games coming this month. But we have a lot to talk about, so I'm not going to get too big on the intros. I'm just basically going to try to get right into the topic. So I'm happy to talk to everyone on the panel and all the people out there listening. Thank you for checking in and hit the like button.
Yeah, that's right, guys. Hit the like button, and great to see you, Tim, as per usual. Moving on here, we got General MLD. Buddy, pal, what's new?
Hey, yeah, good to be here. And just plugging away at the backlog. Just finished Hi-Fi Rush and Callisto Protocol recently. I like both games. Hi-Fi was a great surprise hit out of nowhere. And now I'm playing something else, Chained Echoes, a nice little 16-bit style JRPG. So, yeah, lots to play and lots to talk about. Can't wait.
Agreed. Looking forward to that energy you bring, pal. Moving on here, we got Eric Shockley. Buddy, hey, I saw you slide in there at the end. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Just been getting into some games. Been able to start and almost finish a couple new ones with that Metroid Prime remastered. I just been playing that nonstop, and I'm on the final boss, about the 100% it for the first time. So, and been playing some Hogwarts Legacy. Not the biggest Potter fan after the first three books, but my wife is, so I picked it up on the PS5, and she doesn't play those type of RPG action type games, but I'm getting her into it, and she's having a blast. Now she's addicted. We've played it nonstop over the weekend, so. But yeah, that's been cool. But yeah, I'm ready to get into these topics.
All right, very nice. Glad to hear you're getting in a bunch of gaming. I gotta ask before I move on, though, Shock. I'm really interested in Metroid Prime. Would you recommend it?
Oh, definitely. It's going back to it. Yeah, it's definitely hard to go back to the old GameCube controls, and I've been playing, and I recently beat that on the GameCube last year, and been playing Echoes. So for its time, before this existed, I actually preferred that over the Wii version, just because I didn't like the complete free aim with the remote. But having the dual stick in it perfectly, playing it with a modern control style pretty much fits it perfectly, where it's it's basically the same game. It is a remaster. It's not, people might say it looks like a remake, sure, but it's literally almost one for one the exact same game, just with a fresh coat of paint. If you put a mod on top of some of those old past gen games where it looks brand new, but it's literally on the bare bones of the original. So it plays exactly the same. Yeah, but I would definitely recommend picking that up. especially supporting that because I'm hopeful we'll get the other two. I was hopeful they do it all in a trilogy, but probably won't happen with Corruption just because that was like really we. I don't know if they're going to go that in depth to like try to bring that up to the Switch, but Echoes could definitely do it, and a lot of people didn't play Echoes, so I think it got like it was definitely one of the best games, at least by fans. I don't know if critically or commercially, it just didn't do well. So a lot of people didn't even play that one on top of not playing the first Metroid Prime. But yeah, definitely pick it up. $40. It is definitely worth it. So,
Okay.
Especially over some of the other remasters they've done, like Skyward Sword, which was like $60. So yeah, it's definitely worth it more than that. So I would definitely pick it up. So
Okay, no, good to know because again, I got a birthday coming up in a month or so, so I wouldn't mind that as a birthday present. Hint, hint. Let's see. Moving on down here, guys. Centurion, what's up, brother?
What is up, guys? It is Sunday night. Time for some fun. Time for some debating. I've just been kind of just chilling out and becoming hopelessly addicted to Hogwarts Legacy. I mean, I freaking put Dead Space on the back burner to play it. I can't put the game down. I've been having a lot of fun with it.
All right. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I know a bunch of guys on the panel have been enjoying it too. And damn, I gotta say, I mean, the graphics and little attentions to detail blow me away. I mean, I'm still, again, I like my original, to be honest with you, but I don't blame you for really liking that. I know MLD's been waiting on his helmet for.
Still in the mail.
Oh, yeah, the Dead Space. That's funny.
Yeah.
No, I mean, Dead Space got, dude, I need to go back and finish playing that damn game now. I just keep, every time I'm playing Hogwarts Legacy, I'm like, crap, I gotta finish Dead Space.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, that's right. You got Dead Space, Hogwarts, again, a whole bunch of other games, and Atomic Heart is around the corner.
I know, and we got Atomic Heart around the
2 days
corner.
away.
When are we gonna find any more freaking time to do stuff?
I have cleared my backlog. Well, I haven't cleared it, but I have moved it out of the way just so I can enjoy Atomic Heart. And I have that limited edition pre-ordered. I can't wait for that. And of course, it's on Game Pass. So lots of ways. I don't know. I'm a little spoiled that way. Moving on down here. Last but certainly not least on the panel, Crusader. Hey, what's happening, brother?
Hi, chat. Nothing too much. Long week. But yeah, no. Since we last have been on, I finished the Dead Space remake. I played SpongeBob and the Cosmic Shake. It's good. It's not as good as Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated. I recommend
So
that.
wait for it on sale.
I mean, it launched at $40. Like it's good for what it is, if that makes sense. Anything like 30 under, 25 under, it's fine, right? Like it's good.
It's on my wife's radar, and I want to get it for her, but she still has to play Rehydrated, and that's why I was like,
I play that first. So like that one's, it's the same style game because like it's a spiritual successor to Battle for Bikini Bottom, and I like it more. I also grew up playing that one. Played that. I've been playing some Darksiders War Mastered Edition, the remaster of the first Darksiders game.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty good. And I cannot wait for Destiny 2 Lightfall.
Yes. Yes.
The end of the season, like mission plus cutscene, some of the best in the franchise. Probably best cutscene the franchise has ever had. That's leading us into the next year. It was incredible. It's like a 3-minute long cutscene. Incredible.
I don't think I've seen it, but that's interesting. I'll have to take a look.
Yeah, it came out last Tuesday.
Right.
The game had it didn't leak. They didn't have it in the game files. They released it as a hot fix the day of. And it was like 700 meg hot fix, 700 gig. Yeah, it was just great.
Very interesting there, Crusader. I'll have to take a look at that. Thanks for making me aware.
Yeah, I got Lightfall, Diablo 3's next season, and Atomic Heart all in like the next like 14 days, and like my brain is not ready. It cannot comprehend that fact.
Ooh, and I think we'll talk about Atomic Heart next week since it's coming out, and I
Yeah.
know everybody, like a good portion of the panels are gonna be playing it, so I cannot wait for that talk. I really can't, because I'm gonna be putting in a lot of time into it as much as I can. All right, but guys, reminder to everybody here that to share out the show and hey, give it a like. It helps with the algorithms. And hey, if you're new here, sub. Would love to have you. But yeah, guys in the chat, great seeing you here. Share out the show if you can. That would help out immensely. And also, huge reminder that we are available on a wide variety of platforms: Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, even some other video platforms such as Rumble, just making you guys aware if you're not already. There's all kinds of links in our description, so check them out. But yeah, give us a follow if you're already on them. We would love to have you following us on all kinds of different platforms. But yeah, gentlemen, on that note, let's get straight into things with our first topic. We've got to talk about the effect of Xbox Game Pass on base game sales. Yes, guys, we're going to start off with that. Because of the legal proceedings with the whole Activision acquisition mess, Microsoft has had to disclose various statistics from the Xbox division, and it's submitted that a certain percentage of game sales decline after being added to Game Pass. Recently, they had to clarify the position, going into certain details, but still admitted that there was an effect. I mean, we kind of figured that with Game Pass, but you know, there's a bunch of articles coming up because this was mentioned in these articles. Centurion, my passionate gaming sleuth. I mean, I would love to know your thoughts and opinion on this matter. I mean, personally, I think it's kind of common knowledge that sales would go down because of it, because of the nature of the subscription. But, you know, hey, let me know what your thoughts are, bud. Take it away.
Well, we were chatting about this before the show about how I was wanting to figure out how to approach this subject, and that's because, just real quick, I don't understand why there is a lot of people in the community that are wrapped up in in trying to figure out if Game Pass is financially viable, sustainable, does it hurt developers, is micro, like, for some reason people are more concerned about honestly crap that really doesn't matter. Just play the damn games, enjoy them, have fun. But hey, here we are talking about this. So that's where it's kind of a double-edged sword, as we were talking about. If we're talking about like games like on a more AA or an indie, you know, like we saw Mike Rose, one of the head guys over at No More Robots out on Twitter, decided to come out with a tweet that said, all I could say is we're aiming to get every single title we publish from now on onto Game Pass. In doing so, we'll secure success for each title and relieve immense pressure for the devs. And he was always he is the publisher for Descenders, and Game Pass completely changed that game because that game was on nobody's radar. Barely anybody was interacting with it and buying it. And then they put it into Game Pass, and that's where Game Pass, you know, there's different ways of making money off the service. Through player interaction with the game, or you just get a big giant lump sum for putting it in there. There's different avenues for Game Pass to make someone money. And I think, at least from the way he's acted, for him, it was having player interaction with the game, and they made a good amount of money. With Game Pass, this is the situation if you are a developer or a publisher, is when you're trying to sell your game out in the wild, unless you have some really awesome marketing, an amazing amount of hype surrounding a game, like Atomic Heart, basically your whole concept of trying to make money by selling the game is a what if, where Game Pass is basically guaranteed money. You're going to have to weigh your options on, am I going to throw the dice and see if my game is a success sales wise, or do I go for that guaranteed money and get a paycheck right off the rip? And if it by some chance explodes on Game Pass, I can make more money than I could have with actual sales. But that's where, at least for the smaller games, because we even saw High on Life. We were talking about it that at least we've seen it. High on Life set Game Pass launch records. It was with it was the biggest launch of 2022. And everybody was checking that game out. And if we really look at how many people were going to really buy and basically consume that game if it wasn't in Game Pass, I'm pretty sure the numbers would have been very low. And not to mention, because of Game Pass, Squanch Studios was able to get that game over the finish line because they were actually supposed to be on Stadia. So that initial check, that cash infusion from putting it on Game Pass, was able to help stabilize the studio and get that game out into the wild. But now when we're talking about AAA games, obviously Crusader joined us on that conversation before the show, and we were all talking about how AAA games, yeah, come on now. Yes, there is going to be people that won't buy the game because it's in Game Pass. That is a given. We all know, that's why it's like, this is why I'm confused on why people care, because unless you are one of the developers at that studio and somehow Game Pass took food out of your family's mouth or the ceiling over their heads, why do you care? You're not a stockholder. Who the hell basically says I would rather pay $70 for something that I could pay $15 for? I mean, literally, people are losing their damn minds over the cost of eggs. But for some reason with video games, it's either, pay $70 or you're living on welfare. Because we all hear the jokes that are made towards Game Pass. And that's where I just feel about the whole situation, with everybody wanting to be concerned about it basically cannibalizing sales of big games, when we all freaking know that. But that was the whole idea behind Game Pass. And that is what also shocks me about, like, what we get into our next conversation later about, like, what's going on with the regulators, that somehow Microsoft is creating this way of raising prices. Microsoft has made one of the most financially stomachable ways of playing games, because I mean, dude, to play some of these games, you would have to either have deep pockets or you're just going to miss out on some. And Game Pass has really helped fill the gap for a lot of people that don't have a lot of disposable income, and they love paying their $10, $15 a month, and they have access to games, and they're able to go and chat with their friends about these games and have fun playing them. And it just seems like, at least for me, in my opinion, it's always the same vocal minority that for some reason want to just talk about how is it financially viable when it really shouldn't matter.
Well, just to add in here too, I know everybody wants to jump in here, but obviously this is going to affect, I would say, more so Xbox first party titles. But you look at some of the larger, like, AAA games that they've had in so far. Take, for example, a title like Outriders, right? A lot of people were writing it off. It came out, I guess it was 2 years ago. And, it wasn't really getting a lot of press, but then it was announced into Game Pass. And man, oh man, like, I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it. And then a lot of people were playing it at first. And the devs and even the publisher, Square Enix, had to come out and be like, you know what? We liked our decision. We were pleasantly surprised how successful it's been in Game Pass. And even the digital sales were pretty good too. Like, the number of active users that they were looking at beat our expectations. I'm just quickly looking at.
There was one developer that I forget what game it was, but it was, I think, like 2 years ago, where they had a sit-down meeting where there was one developer that complained about his deal with Game Pass, and that was because the developer completely underestimated what the service was going to bring to attention-wise to his game, and he basically lowballed himself because he thought the game was not going to be as successful as it was on Game Pass. And then all of a sudden it blew up on Game Pass, but because his negotiating skills were subpar, he did miss out on some money. And that's pretty much the only time I've heard any developer really speak ill of Game Pass. And that was just because he completely underestimated how successful the service really is.
The Outriders devs also indirectly had an issue, but that was because of their deal with Square Enix and how their deal with Square Enix worked, and then Square Enix getting to put it onto Game Pass, and like those two things being kind of mutually exclusive. So like for parties that are like being negotiated on as like a secondary, it's more that they need to be more careful about how their deals with their publisher are worded, so that like the publisher can't just get away with things like Square Enix did with that. But that is like a very specific use case, because I know Outriders, like because of how many people played it on Game Pass, they had a thing in their deal based on how much it sold would be how much royalties they got, but because it wasn't selling as much as they had anticipated because of the Game Pass deal, they didn't get their royalties until much later.
Oh yeah, that was totally underhanded. I remember reading about that was underhanded.
That's totally Square Enix taking advantage of of one contract and another contract. That's not, and I mean, power to Square Enix for doing that and getting away with it, but
fault a corporation for acting like a corporation.
Yeah, but that's the only case that I've seen like otherwise that's like interesting in that regard. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, to me, this whole, like, again, it's very interesting. TimDog, pal, I mean, what are your thoughts on this? Because, again, we always knew that there would be, like, you know, sales would come down in certain cases, but overall, I mean, I always see developers kind of championing Game Pass, especially the indie devs, you know, because more people get to try their games.
Yeah, listen, I think that what's going on here is they took a statement that's part of this whole case, and I think that they ran with it. There's two sides of the story. I do believe that Game Pass actually helps certain games, and that has been shown to be the case. But like for first party exclusives, it's kind of obvious that you're gonna say, those games which they used to rely on full buying exclusives, full price. You're now you have another option, which is going to be the most popular option in Game Pass. What people don't, or the people who are writing these articles will fail to mention, you have a different way of making money now. It's a different model. So for what you don't sell on that end, a subscriber that you gain that goes into your ecosystem for possibly 12 or more months is more valuable than that physical sale. So I think that it was definitely way overblown. If you think that Xbox is struggling with Game Pass and it's such a unsustainable, all you have to do is look at the current state of affairs, where they're trying to put $67 billion, and I would say 40 billion of those dollars probably going for the Call of Duty license for the game, because they know they can put into Game Pass. They know it will drive Game Pass, and on the same flip of a coin, or whatever you want to call it, you have Jim Ryan actively trying to sabotage the deal, because he knows how powerful it will be for Game Pass. So it's like, I don't get it. Like, you're gonna be negative about it on one aspect, but you're not gonna look at anything else other than that. And you're also not looking at what's going on right now, where you have the market leader in absolute fear and doing everything that it can, spending as much money as they can to sabotage this deal, just because it will go into Game Pass. Because as we know, the game is going to go to Call of Duty is going to go to PlayStation day and date. They're going to actually have an ability to put it in their service, which they won't, because you have to pay money. I don't think Xbox or Microsoft has to be obligated to do that. Maybe that's part of the concessions. I doubt it, but it's kind of funny. It's like, you're trying to build this narrative, and then, everything what you're saying, all the truth, all the facts of the matter are just flying, right into your face, back into your face. So it's like, like you're telling a half story. I felt like when that came out, I didn't really even attack it on Twitter because I felt it was silly. Yeah, you're gonna, and I think Phil would admit that you're gonna lose some sales on the front end with like games like Halo, Gears, and stuff like that. But on the back end, you're probably picking up more players, more people are going to access the game, and they've said that numerous times. That's their end goal. That's their end game. They want people on the ecosystem. They want people playing the game. They want the monthly active users to keep growing, and they want the subscription model to basically pay itself back, and it will, and it's getting bigger, and it's growing, and it's going to be going to a point where it's gonna it could take that whatever you would lose and basically back it up. Also, not to mention Xbox has PC Game Pass, and it has storefront on puts its games on Steam day and date, a cross buy as well with Windows if you get it, for the whole shebang with Ultimate. That's awesome value. And I don't know how that stuff is not being highlighted. It's like they want to get Xbox. Lately, since this whole thing, there's been a real lust to get Xbox in a gotcha moment, or I do feel like the heat's ratcheted up on Xbox, especially with the media. And there's a lot of people that are putting a lot of the whatever you want to say into that. This deal doesn't go through. I mean, I everyone on this panel, we've seen the hate that's been going on, and the fact is that if Xbox gets the deal to go through, it's going to be a huge thing for Game Pass. And you know what? That's good. That's good for gamers. That's good for people that want to have a subscription-based model. There's nothing wrong with it. This shouldn't be something that's not allowed. It's a way for myself to save money, but it's also a way for myself to spend my money in other avenues of gaming. That, like, I could buy a multi-plat that I wouldn't buy because I could buy Starfield 6 months down the road, or I can buy another game down the road, and I can get Atomic Heart. You know what I mean? It's like I just kind of feel like the whole thing has kind of been unfair. People ran with it. They didn't fully explain the whole thing. I think that I don't think Phil lied here, because there are many games that have done very well. Mike Rose, who's a developer, has talked about how his game went into Game Pass. David Springate for of the car game, I forgot the name of it, but that game went into Game Pass day one and did very well. He even talks about it, how it's done well. Certain games, like High on Life, that's another game. That game did tremendously well and saw a tremendous amount of people playing it. That might not have happened if it was just a game that you had to buy and you had to shell out whatever $60 for. People might not have touched it. So there is pros and cons, but you have to realize their model is vastly different than anyone. They're the only one doing this. So if you're going to say something like that, please tell the whole story. Because it's not a dead end when you're, approaching 35 million or whatever they are on Game Pass, and they have something in the works that could, really, push the service ahead. And that's basically why Sony's definitely afraid, because they see it. They see, the value of people saying, oh my God, I can play Call of Duty. All I need is that. It's something that could trigger, casuals and everyone into and I do believe that people will move over. But you know what? There's nothing unfair about this. That's not an unfair marketplace move. That's Xbox. They decided in 2017 to invest in cloud and Game Pass, and this is their model, and they're rightfully so, deservedly so. Should be able to use it, and they should be able to invest in it. And we're going to go on with the talk about Brussels on February 21st later on, and I'm going to elaborate more. But what's been going on has been bullshit, and I think that I think a lot of the media now is starting to kind of do what they did in 2013 and be negative and attack these stupid articles over here, right and left. And the positive momentum that Xbox did have in 2022, early 22, has eroded, and they've had a really rough year. And I think they're having some supply issues with the Xbox Series X, and they're really getting hurt right now on the console front. But they're no way saying that they're giving up. They're wanting like hell to get this deal to go through, and I do believe if it does, it's going to put them in a really good position. But it's not gonna shake up the market like people are saying and stuff like that. But again, it comes down to Game Pass. It's a great idea, and at the end of the day, it's great for gamers. It's great for people who want a game. You game more when you have Game Pass. There's no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like honestly, guys, if you just do like a random search, right? Because I've seen again all these different indie devs or just devs in general comment about Game Pass. Of course, you'll get the ones that are kind of they're not really sure about it. But then you look at the ones that have cut deals with Microsoft, Xbox. For example, Night School Studios, developers of After Party, right? Remember that game? Like I'm looking at this one article here, and the developer was like, what I worried about was, is this going to cannibalize other sales earlier on? That was the main concern. Is this going to be out on the same platform? I want people buying it on Xbox still. But what we found out was that not only did it not cannibalize the sales, it increased our sales everywhere else on every platform. Now, hey, you guys might think I'm cherry picking a developer quote, but obviously there are devs are having success with this model. So it is successful for developers here, guys. I'm trying not to cherry pick, but I mean, it does seem like, and Game Pass is growing month by month, year by year. General MLD, buddy, what are your thoughts on this? I know you want to chime in.
Oh yeah, because people went hard on this on the internet here. So I mean, a lot of people are being fake concerned over the trillion-dollar corporation and how they like to do things. Don't know how that works, but okay. Like, what Xbox does that Sony and Nintendo don't do is, and which Tim touched on this, it was like a day one PC, Windows Store, but Steam especially, right? And that is not by accident. I feel like since this was done in 2015, this was all part of a grand plan that Phil put into motion, and I think PC is a big part of what Xbox is now more than ever. And I think that has always meant to be a great compensating mechanism for what Game Pass is. Because even though Game Pass is on PC, I feel like PC gamers are mostly very traditional, especially Steam users. They're stuck in their ways, and hey, that's great. Get different strokes for different gamers, right? They rely on Steam sales to compensate for any shortfall of game sales on Xbox itself. And I think that's all part of the ecosystem. That's all part of the plan. Like what was it? The quote is that Game Pass leads to more sales. I personally always interpreted that as and Sarah Bond, she actually posted some stats that back this up. She said that Game Pass users spend more compared to non-Game Pass users. Now, a lot of people online are mistaking this quote for the game itself. Like, if a game goes on Game Pass, then, oh, I thought you guys were supposed to buy more of it if it's on Game Pass. No, it means we buy more in general. Like, I am a Game Pass user, happy Game Pass user. Like last year, I beat 23 Game Pass games, but I played overall 50. So I ended up buying like more than double that, like non-Game Pass games. I've been spending more than I ever have as a Game Pass user. So in that regard, the quote is actually correct. People are just interpreting it wrong. We are 100% spending more money, but the game itself that's on Game Pass, of course we're not going to buy it as much if it's on Game Pass. Like, I played so many games on Game Pass, I'm personally not going to rebuy the game unless I want to play it down the road and I really want to show my appreciation to the developers. But overall, though, that's the point of Game Pass, is to get that value and take that perceived value and spend it somewhere else on a game that's not on Game Pass. And then again, I said it before, that's what Steam is for. That's what PC is for. It's meant as a compensating mechanism. Sony does not do this. They wait at least a year to put their games on PC. And we see how the sales for that end up. But they're doing things differently. Xbox is doing things differently. So I think, but also I feel like you guys said before, though, it depends on the games. It's case by case. The word of mouth and exposure, like, that cannot be understated. That for many games can make or break it. Now, I feel like there are games that people wouldn't have bought outright. Like, for myself, I wouldn't have bought High on Life, but I played on Game Pass. I loved it. Games like, Sniper Elite 5. Played that on Game Pass last year. I had a great time. I probably wouldn't have bought it. So I feel like developers would know this. Like, not every game is going to have your Call of Duty kind of appeal. You might fall under the radar. So you kind of need Game Pass to get that guaranteed payout. Like indie devs. I feel like indie devs, it's pretty much common sense at this point that indie games and Game Pass go really well together, because the instant Game Pass payout for such a small team, for such a small budgeted game, can literally make or break the entire operation. It'll put their game over the finish line, and it'll get the game exposure and more word of mouth, which is what they really need, because an indie game in this day and age can get lost in the sea. There are so many indie games to choose from. So being on Game Pass is a big boon for them. So at the very least, that makes sense. AA games, we see that with Plague Tale 2. I think it's arguably high-end AA, whatever. But the point is, though, it even works for AA games in terms of exposure. AAA, I can see the argument, unless it's heavily microtransaction heavy, in which case Game Pass is actually good, because it gets you the foot in the door, and it'll get you spending on cosmetics or whatever the microtransactions are, because you feel like you're saving a lot by playing the game essentially, like, for what? For free. You think it's for free, but it's $15. But even so, you're not paying $60, $70. So you buy more microtransactions. It depends on the game. But overall, though, I don't know what's all this concern going around. Xbox, they know what they're doing. They're on the cusp of really, really realizing what they want to do with this acquisition. And that acquisition will really, really add to Game Pass and really put it over the top, combined with Starfield and Redfall and Forza. Like, we're going to be in the perfect storm very, very soon. And Xbox is going to have a lot of great things happening for it, a lot of great growth. So I say just enjoy the service for what it is. Like, it's a great deal. Use it. Don't worry about the corporation, the $1 trillion corporation. They're doing just fine. So that's what I gotta say about it. Like, it's an ecosystem. They call it an ecosystem for a reason. Game Pass is not by itself. It all works together. PC, console, cloud, their future mobile plans. Everything helps each other out. Game Pass is not by itself, which is a pretty common misunderstanding. Yeah.
Good job.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
No, very well said. I totally agree with what you said there, MLD. And again, just looking up random articles here, Outer Wilds dev says that, Game Pass is really awesome. Xbox Game Pass is guaranteeing success for dozens of developer praises Microsoft's service and how it's benefits game makers. I mean, I could go on and on and on. There's an article with Mike Rose here. But again, like, obviously not every developer is going to have the same success or, different, depending on how you weight things. But there has been a lot of commentary on it, and Game Pass just keeps growing and growing. And I mean, it might affect the sales of certain things, but at the same time, I mean, you don't hear Microsoft complaining by any means. They just keep touting Game Pass, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure if the service was doing poorly, they wouldn't talk about it as much.
They wouldn't invest $67 billion into it. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing that gets me is that, you know, you're being short sighted and saying, okay, we're gonna take this out of something, the documentation out of what's going on or what's being said. And obviously, they're speaking in terms of, you know, I don't know if they're painting the most. They're painting an accurate picture, but I do think that they're putting it out there, or at least when the articles have written, they're putting it out there without, kind of like telling the whole story. And that's what I think that we both said. Like, you have to also think about, Game Pass itself and how it's growing and how big it's getting, and how it basically changes the game. And in that there is some negatives, but the negatives also are countered by positives where they have a Game Pass model that's unrivaled right now. And again, if it was such a bad thing, why would they be fighting so hard to get this through? And why would Sony be so hard fighting for it not to happen? So that's all that's the facts. So that's what's really going on. So, I just think people want to get people in gotcha moments and looking for headlines. But, if you really do critical thinking, it's kind of obvious what's going on here. You know what I mean?
And look at, like, why would Bandai Namco keep putting their games in there? They have put Scarlet Nexus in there like just 3 months after release, and then now they're launching with Team Ninja their brand new game day one on Game Pass. Team Ninja doesn't, like, people already know Team Ninja is. They made the Neo games that are highly acclaimed on on Sony's platform and PC. You obviously have the
Tecmo?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
they're
right.
Koei
Tecmo.
Tecmo.
My bad. But still, like, you still see big Japanese publishers that keep jumping on, like, board. Like, they're gonna look at data and, like, hey, obviously Microsoft's gonna, like, especially with, like, Wolong Dynasty coming up here day one, they're gonna want to see, like, from Microsoft's point of view of, like, hey, okay, what's our potential? I'm sure they've showed them, like, numbers of, like, okay, here's a game that's hit day one, whether it's Plague's Tale or whatever. Okay, cool. That's a number we can handle, and then that's gonna also help boost, because it's a new IP, so it's not like they're doing like Neo 3. It's a new IP that people won't. It's not Ninja Gaiden. It's not gonna, even though it's that same team that has a big name themselves. Still, when you release something out there that's maybe a little bit different from what you've done in the past, and with a whole new name, especially a long worded name, long spelled name, whatever, it might need a little bit of boost. Obviously they know what it's going to do probably on Sony's platform, PC, because they've released games recently, but they've skipped Xbox platform, so that's a good bat for them, just to kind of test the water, just to see, like, okay, obviously people on Xbox are into Team Ninja's games because because of the history with Dead or Alive and Ninja Gaiden in the past, but it's a good to test the waters, to get reinvigorate that fan base that they've kind of been abandoned for a while. So and it's gonna just, the second that game hits, especially if it's releases like high critic rating, you're gonna see like that all over. They don't even need to, like, literally do a whole big press tour. All they gotta make sure is this polished game, and Game Pass is gonna do the rest. Because think about what Hi-Fi Rush did on a Shadow Drop. If this game is like anywhere close to that level of Metacritic, like, people are gonna be doing all the publicity for them. So
yeah, I also think that, like, you make a good point. There are just this year, there's a ton of third-party developers that are signing on for day one's Atomic Heart.
Oh yeah.
Wu Long, or the game that you just talked about, Stalker 2. You know, then there's a little bit lesser ones like the Lies of P, which is a game that a lot of people seem to like and very interested. Benedict, legendary Benedict Fox game that looks pretty cool. So it's not like, you know, you don't have devs jumping on this. You know, it is advantageous for some, in some cases. And you know, and as far as the Xbox first party, it's part of their, you know, their pitch to the gamer. And let's be honest, it's a great pitch if, you know, the games come. It wasn't a great pitch last year because they had a bad year. They had delays, but you know, I just want to see what the landscape is when, you know, Xbox gets all these games that I just mentioned, possibly Hellblade 2, the show, day one, at the end of the year. Like, if they all hit, you know, are we still going to be talking trivial shit, or are we going to actually talk about what a great year Xbox has had, or what's on the horizon? You're not hearing that, and I kind of really, you know, like I definitely feel like the media definitely, and I get it because they're not the market leader, but you know,
the document they were reading said cannibalize sales, but that could mean anything. That could be like, hey, there are some small group of sales that are cannibalized, like this player would have bought the game, but as a whole, did it improve the game sales overall?
Exactly.
It didn't specify.
Go ahead.
Also,
go ahead, Crusader.
I have a lightning round of stuff that I was going to mention, and that is part of it. So let's look at the document. Document is referencing specifically Activision Blizzard games. So they're all AAA massive games that we're all going to sell they were all going to sell in pretty high numbers, right? We're talking like Diablo 4, Call of Duty, blah, 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 blah. So we have to look at it in the scope of AAA, because that's what they're talking about. And yeah, of course, it's going to cannibalize the sales because it's going to sell less on the Xbox platform because you don't have to pay for it. That it is talking specifically about game sales, not total played. And people are freaking out because, oh, that means that like we're bringing in less for this. They're such loss leading that this isn't sustainable. Blah blah blah. Well, does not follow from the other, because the first thing you have to look here is number one, is anyone who's putting their game onto Game Pass comfortable putting their game onto Game Pass? Did they sign a deal, and are they happy with their deal? Multiple people keep putting their stuff on it, so they have to be happy with the amount of money that they're getting versus the differential in stuff that they're getting, right? So like, you know, they're getting paid a comfortable amount for the stuff that they're putting on. So the companies that are putting stuff on, yeah, they don't care that the cannibalization is happening, that they're losing out on potential sales because their opportunity has risen in other ways. And for Microsoft, you know, we have to look at it this way. Are they maximizing the amount of money per customer better? Because just because they're not getting a sale on the game doesn't mean that they're not maximizing the actual revenue in from the customer more. Because you're taking it from a system where you are making X amount off of each game to a more collectivized, this is just how much money we're bringing in from this customer in our ecosystem. And are they buying more games that aren't on Game Pass? Are they buying more DLC than they would before? Are we getting that consistent $180 out of the majority of them? You know, for Game Pass Ultimate, or $120 for Game Pass, or, you know, what have you, right? Are we maximizing the actual revenue intake from them better by giving them a curated selection of titles that we either produce ourselves or make ourselves for less? And essentially, it is a loss-leading product, right? In that regard, right? Now, they might even just be making more off per customer from that $180 a year than the average customer before they were getting off of them, and that could be enough by itself. But by bringing those customers to your ecosystem, by offering them such a low-priced entry point, and then making more off of sales of things that aren't in Game Pass, like your Elden Rings, your Gotham Knights, your Hogwarts Legacies, so on and so forth, because people might be buying that on Xbox now instead of another marketplace, because, well, Xbox has given them such a great deal in the door. Now they're selling more of other shit out the door, and that's a tactic called loss leading, where you sell one thing at a loss to or at a more break even point, not even necessarily a loss, but you sell it at a smaller differential, then and you make your money up elsewhere. A lot of car dealerships do this with new cars, because the new cars, they're pretty much selling at a break even point, whereas they're making their money off of the car sales by getting you to get the extended warranties and the special like sealant package, so if you spill stuff on your trunk, it's easy to clean and it doesn't, shit like that. So like with Game Pass, is Game Pass bringing more customers into their ecosystem and they're spending more overall? That's all that matters. None of this shit matters when people are saying, well, like, are they maximizing their profit per game? Who cares if they're maximizing their profit per game, as long as they're happy with the actual money they're bringing in versus the money that's coming out? Who cares exactly where that money is coming in and out? And for third-party devs, if they don't want to put their game on day one on Game Pass, they don't have to. There's no mandate. There's no force to. It's not like you're launching a game on Xbox, you got to be on Game Pass, right? I don't expect GTA 6 to launch into Game Pass day one. Heck, I don't expect it to launch into Game Pass for like 2 years, if it ever, right? For third parties who don't want to launch into it, they don't have to launch into it. And are we seeing their sales truly impacted? I don't think so. And the companies that are launching into it, well, are they happy? Are they launching into it multiple times? A lot of people are. I think Sega had something like, in the last 2 years, they've had something like 18 games launch into Game Pass, either day one or after the fact. Great. Sega loves it. Square Enix has had quite a few launch into it, but Square Enix is such a weird company that I don't want to use them as an example of anything. Bandai Namco's launched a ton of games into it. Capcom has launched plenty of games into it now. EA's not comfortable launching day one stuff into it, but they launch every last one of their games in the Game Pass Ultimate via EA Play, right? And they say in their investor deals they're very happy with that because it's monetizing their back library. So all that really matters in this entire conversation is, are the people who are putting their games into Game Pass happy with what they're getting? And we've heard very few complaints. One of them's the contractual dispute brought up earlier. One of them was it was an over underestimate of how many users were going to play it and what they should have been paid. That's something that you need good cost analysis people to do, and Microsoft, they may have let that person down by not properly cost analyzing it enough. But that also could have been a time when they had a huge spike in Game Pass. Who knows, right? And for all this stuff, we have like only a few examples of developers ever being upset with their Game Pass launch. Almost all of it is return customers keep putting stuff into Game Pass, right? So obviously it's a whole lot of noise for a whole lot of nonsense. Does it cannibalize sales? Yeah, and everyone brings up that Phil Spencer article from like 5 years ago where he says that stuff sold better. Even if we took that, MLD brought up some good points. I would prefer, I still think, to take it at face value. Even if you're taking it at face value, you're talking at a time when they had like somewhere between 5 and 10 million subs versus 20 million now. It is a totally different ecosystem to even talk about, right?
Right.
You have like 5 million people playing Forza on Game Pass. I think that's the game he's even talking about in that article, right? And you got 5 million people playing it through Game Pass. That's a whole lot of untapped people that might now be buying it to play it with their friend at that time period. Now that you got 20 million people on Game Pass, it's a little bit different, right? It might, at that time, it might legitimately have been helping the sales of first-party content. Now it probably isn't helping. Their margins on first-party content is probably not nearly as good as if they were just selling it. But like I said, if they're taking a loss on their first-party content to make gains throughout their storefront and everywhere like that, then that's fine. They're using their resources to attract customers and make more money in overall than they could otherwise. So who cares? We're getting a better deal. I cannot understand why people are mad when the consumer's getting a better deal if they like it. Now, if you don't like Game Pass, well, you still have the option to just buy the shit and nothing's changed. I don't get it. I don't get the complaints. Can someone explain the complaints to me? How is this a bad system for anyone, right?
Well, apparently
the only reason it would be a bad system for someone is if you were forced to put your game into it, and you're not unless they own you.
You get it on cloud, you get it on PC. Listen, that's the thing. I think it's a very positive thing. I kind of feel.
I've never understood anyone who's like, oh, but it's cannibal. Who cares? They're obviously happy with the system. Who cares?
But the thing is,
Who cares
you have
if
to
it's
buy.
selling less?
It's just been really, there's been a lust of hate lately.
Even in the Outriders case, like you look at that game, I know the devs saying like, well, it must have hurt us.
They weren't
like,
gotten their royalties anyways.
No one was. The amount of people that were not talking about that game until that announcement he made on, I think it was MSNBC.
Watch the Google graph. Yeah, it's hilarious.
I didn't never even seen a glimpse of it, and I played the shit out of that game. I had no glimpse or even wherewithal of that game existing on my radar, except for some people just talking about it, how it reminded them of Gears. Never seen it, just heard people talking about it. But when that announcement happened, it exploded. Like everybody out of nowhere started caring about Outriders. You saw all over Twitter, everybody was talking about Outriders out of nowhere. Yeah, and it kept going because all these people had access to it. And then same people on PlayStation and PC was like, oh shit, it's all over my feed. Everybody's playing it. Oh, let me. So
it's going to cannibalize first-party sales. Who cares? If Microsoft's doing it and they're making the Xbox division's doing better than ever, and consumers are generally more happy with the products they're getting, who cares exactly how the money's coming in, as long as it's still coming in? And at this point, I have no reason to think it's not coming in, because it's not like the division has dropped radically in revenue outside of the last quarter, which gestures at the economy.
I mean,
gestures at their lack of launches.
I think you'll see a big year-over-year.
Yeah, I agree too. I think there'll be a huge year-over-year next year, and I think even in the later quarters of this year, we'll see better stuff. I think quarter one is still going to not be a very good-looking quarter.
The issue, guys, is that Xbox hasn't had a consistent release schedule for games.
As soon as they start launching a minimum of 2 super large, super big hitting games a year, which this year looks like we will have that with Forza and Starfield.
We might have 4.
Yeah. We might have multiple. I'm not quite ready to put Redfield in that category. I mean, a Redfall in that category. It could be. It very easily could be. But I mean, none of Arcane's games have been that like absolutely massively everyone wants to play it successful. They've always been niche successful, which is fine. It's good. I like those kind of games. I love Prey. Right? I'm not dishing. I'm not going to put it in the Forza Starfield category. Yeah, it's still AAA. I'm saying, like, once they have like 2 or 3 super heavy hitter games launch in a year, which, I mean, based on what they have announced, based on what they have in development, that they have to hit that at some point, right? They have to. I think we'll do it this year easy with Forza and Starfield alone. We might have Hellblade. We might, later. We don't know what's planned for the second half of the year, but that's when the articles will stop, because right now there's no consistent trust to base things off of. It's one thing that I've been saying, and like people have hammered me for, but I've been saying it, and a lot of this goes away when consistency arrives.
Agreed.
Right? A lot of it goes away when consistency
100%.
arrives.
That's true.
And also, the other thing you have to take into account is literally half of these articles are written because of Google's SEO, because these the websites make money based off of people viewing their shit. And so if you've ever wondered why there is always an article based on, is this game coming to PlayStation when it's an Xbox exclusive, it is not because that company is actually believes that, or even the writer believes any of that, or is answering a heavy hitting question. They are writing for the algorithm because people are searching that, right? 100%. That is 99% of those articles.
Oh yeah,
that's a good point.
People are searching this, and it has blown up on Twitter, and people are talking about it. Let's get in on the Google search engine side of it, and let's make some money for the site on an article that is just basically copy and paste to write from someone else. Okay, that's why these articles constantly blow up. And when there is consistency in the brand, a lot of it goes away, because a lot of that's no longer something you're searching. That's no longer user searches or anything like that, right?
Yeah, I remember. You know what? I have guys that say Sony pays off the media. I don't listen.
It's not.
I don't believe that happens. But let's be honest. At the beginning of the year, and when Halo and Forza 5 Forza Horizon 5 came out, there was a real big positive buzz going around about Xbox.
Huge positive buzz.
It was
and
selling
Psychonauts
well.
too. Don't forget Psychonauts.
Psychonauts, and it was just had a really strong year. And then you had the delays, and then Sony really just started kicking Xbox's ass, which it has done in a lot of previous gens. Like last gen, they started like in 2016, really started to pull away. The difference is here, I do think that Xbox is set up in a way that if they can get the COD deal to go through somehow, albeit maybe concessions, I don't know how they can figure that out. We'll talk about that. I'll give you some of my insight on when we go on to that subject. But if they can get that deal and they can have possibly Hellblade this year and consistently have pretty much a game per month, it looks like they can have an amazing year. I do think that at the end of the year, people will start to be positive again about Xbox.
I do wonder if the Call of Duty game this year actually would even launch into Game Pass. Not because of any concessions or anything, but because it still has the marketing deal with. This is the last year with the marketing deal with PlayStation. I legitimately don't know if that would, based on when that was written, based on Game Pass came into it. I genuinely don't know if that would preclude a launch or not. No idea. That's complete speculation on my part.
I know we've talked about this, and I know, and I agree with you. You definitely have sound logic there, and to be honest, I would agree with you. But I did hear something that if they do get the deal, they're going to clear out the calendar. And
and I guarantee the back catalog will come. It's just it would be very interesting to find out if anything that's under the current Call of Duty contract at Sony.
Diablo would come right away.
Diablo would come right away. Anything Blizzard would come right away. I mean, Microsoft has marketing rights for Diablo, for Christ's sake.
I mean, just think about that year. If they could have possibly Hellblade, they could really have an amazing year. And nobody's really talking about it other than pro Xbox-centric sites. But, listen, I'm happy. Tomorrow we have the Monday embargo, and I want to ask the panel. We're not going to go on this. I just want to hear Metacritic prediction for Atomic Heart, because we will have one. I'm at 75.
Okay.
I'll say 82.
High 70s.
Jock?
I'll put out low 80s.
Now, I would have went 85 or around things, but I read some of these impressions, and there was a lot of complaining in them. So,
oh boy,
interesting.
Not complaining. It was complaining. It wasn't really complaining. You know what the most biggest complaint was? That the guy, the main character's, his character is bland, and he reminds me of the guy of Dying Life. He doesn't, listen, I don't know. If the game's great, do you have to really? Yeah. From what I've seen,
Isaac in Dead Space 1, he was really bland. He didn't talk.
Yeah, because that was such a defining.
I don't need to have
the guy didn't talk
as the protagonist.
Yeah. Master Chief barely talked in a lot of the early Halo games, but look what Halo did.
He was bland.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I'll be more curious what the actual user reviews are. Like, that's what I kind of go off of more than the journalist.
It looks really cool.
Yeah.
World is what it's supposed to speak to, kind of like a Bioshock type game. That's all you're the person, and it's this world that you're invested in. So.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm pumped.
We're also dealing with a game that's written by I know it's not just Russian. I know they came
out of technically where their studio's placed.
That is in the backlash. I've heard that.
Yeah, they're technically based in Cyprus as a legal entity. They are a Russian studio.
Yeah, and that's where I'm just but just to put it out there,
there were people calling for it in the beginning of the war. When it started, there were people calling for it to be. Not to be put on Xbox or whatever.
Which I don't understand, because I mean, you're going to condemn them.
They're funded partly by I believe they have grants from the Russian government in part.
Yeah.
It still doesn't mean that they're in agreement with what's going on. I mean, I actually listened to some metal performers out of that part of the world that completely denounce what the government is doing.
I got news for you. You can't really do that though.
Yeah.
They can't. If I were them, I wouldn't say anything.
How many
Yeah.
small studios had grants from like the U.S. when we
Sure,
were doing the same
that
thing
is
to
that is
Iraq
my argument as
a
well. Because
decade?
like, I mean, look at what we've done to the fucking.
We literally did the same thing to
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
look
we
at
we
what
could
we've
get
done
into
to-
That was the same invasion.
geopolitics,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
like,
but no,
but no,
we'll move on.
No,
Let's
no,
see
no,
what-
no,
Yeah.
no.
I was
I totally understand what you
Yeah.
guys mean, like honestly, and like we could have a real healthy discussion, a real mature discussion on it. But I mean, we got to get to some of the other topics. But I do
Yeah.
agree. I think that Atomic
1
Heart
hour
is.
in on Game Pass.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No. It's been a fantastic discussion, guys. Honestly,
Yeah.
and the chat's been having a really healthy discussion too, guys. You guys have been awesome, and if you guys haven't done so, give it a like, guys, and share this show out. Love having you here.
I know my sorry to cut you off, but I know my take on the whole stupid Redfall thing will be very short.
Well, I think
Mine'll be
yeah.
mine'll be quick and easy too.
I think everyone's is gonna be. It's just very. It just we kind of have to touch on it, but guys.
Do we want to get it out of the way?
Okay. I guess we can do that now. I mean,
Yeah,
you
we
know.
get it out of the way.
Okay.
5 minutes.
Because the FTC style, the Brussels thing, just to let
That's
you know.
gonna go on and on. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big deal too.
Yeah.
February 21st. We'll talk about it when we get
Okay.
to it.
All right, guys. Well, yeah. Okay. We'll have a little bit of time. We'll have a small interlude here with the Redfall talk. So, in case anybody doesn't know, earlier this week, Bethesda's support site put out a statement. It originally stating that both Xbox and PC copies of the game would have codes in them instead of actual discs, and there was a massive uproar in a like a very short period of time, and then Bethesda soon went on to correct that statement, saying that yes, Xbox games will contain discs, the standard versions, but it still feels like puzzled how Bethesda could have like screwed up something very, very simple in their own statements. Yeah, Crusader, please dig into this, because I mean, you know, I think everybody just has kind of a short and sweet kind of statement on this.
Yeah, for those who don't know, I am an IT specialist, help desk specialist. I write these kind of support articles as part of my job all the freaking time. And reading that article, I've questioned whether or not what everyone else thought. You know, does this mean that it doesn't come with a physical disc? That is something that whoever writes their support articles should have caught immediately and not published, and they should have refined it. That is just bad article writing. In one of those articles, they wrote it very concise and very neatly, and it answered that question. However, they didn't add context to the question itself by saying, by adding a related article saying like this is what you get physically, or having something, if you are looking for the physical contents, go here, right? And so that's just bad KB writing, knowledge-based writing. And really, you know, did people get upset? Yes. Should they have gotten upset? I mean, I believe that if you're selling a physical plastic box without a disc in it, you are in the wrong, whatever company you are. It really only happens right now with third parties with Nintendo. Some third parties with Nintendo do that, and it's dumb as shit. Why are you wasting the plastic to ship someone a code? Just sell the code. Is it that important to have your thing listed at a GameStop? I mean, on Amazon, they sell codes. Why, whatever. And so I get why everyone got mad. I respect why everyone got mad. It would be a dumb decision, and based on the support article, that is what it looked like. That being said, I'm happy they quickly solved it, and they need to structure their support site better so that there are more linked articles and more context to things. I personally never would have let that particular article go live. That it was just poorly worded.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for me, I think it was a combination of them 2 weeks ago saying that they're going to be
always online. Yep.
Always
online.
I think he kind of had like a bullseye on it.
Yep.
And I agree with you that they're probably not the best worded. But I will say this, man, a lot of people went with it, made videos, went absolutely nuts.
Oh, yeah.
Before really getting officials.
I mean, that is an official statement, mind you. A support article is an official statement. And if there isn't clarity in a support article, which a support article is the, like, most authoritative point about a game because it will have the most detail because it's supposed to answer any question a consumer can bring. And the fact that they didn't have their support articles all linked together, it's just bad practice. Bad. In the IT field, it's an awful IT practice because you're going to confuse end users who don't understand how to use computers, right? In this case, you're just confusing consumers who are trying to buy something. It's not good.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I guess you do have a point there. But I guess the moral of the story is when you have a bullseye on you, anything that you're gonna do is really gonna be under the microscope. And I mean, they showed some gameplay today of the game, and it's progressively looking better and better. So I'm really excited about it. I think a lot of the online stuff. Listen, I was a digital gamer in 360 era. Put it that way. I started to transition to 360 to digital. I wanted just immediately. I was never not a collector, but and I understand people want physical. But listen, I hate to say it. It's 2023. I mean, if we're really having problems with these games, and I agree that there are some people that are affected and it sucks. I just think that's more of a. I think at this point, everyone should have internet, and if they're living in a place without internet, that's something that their government or something has to get straightened out.
You do have to think about data caps and stuff too in that regard.
Yeah, that's crazy that there's data caps.
Yeah, I can't imagine having a data cap, but I know people who do, and I'm like, that's insanity.
Yeah, true. That's a good point. That's a very good point. But I just don't. But personally, I can't get behind. I can't be passionate about it against it. Because I just feel like we're just. Personally, I'm so past that. I was ready in 2013, and now it's like 2023. But I do think that if they could give us a reason why they're doing it, I think that would go a long way. I think most people are just pissed off because, and that goes a lot of Xbox fans because they've come to me, and this is not like a fanboy thing. Many Xbox fans came to me and said, "What the hell, Tim?" I think they just want an answer, and I do think that there is an answer. Maybe Bethesda or Arcane can give some of the people the answers that they seek.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things I could say about this. Honestly, I'm just kind of shocked by how much the media wants to probe at Redfall. Like, I'm not saying it's the top of my list for anything, but I mean, I do definitely want to give it a shot. It just seems like they want to nitpick things about it, even though, I mean, it does look like a pretty fun game, and it does have a release date. It's not too far away, and I am looking forward to seeing more about it. It seems like, they really want to dig into it for some reason, and I have no clue why, unless it's just the Xbox tag attached to it. Shockley, buddy, I mean, I'm curious what your thoughts here on it. I know that you've gone digital in recent years. What do you think about this whole kerfluffle?
Yeah, I think it was just like a big to do about nothing. Like, it was online. The bigger issue should have been, hey, the single player is always online. Because the second that happens, whether there's a disc in there, that disc it might as well be a code. Like, if anything, that disc is even worse, because if the game's not actually on the disc to where you can play it offline, then if I lose the disc, then I lose access because I probably have to keep the disc in there, kind of like as a key, like we do with our backwards compatible 360 games. You have to initiate it. So if I lose that, I'm kind of more liable of not being able to play an always online game. So at that point, I totally don't care. Like, nor should I think anyone now you should be upset with them if it's like, hey, it's all online only and there's a single player aspect. Technically, Destiny is kind of that same way. However, Destiny does force you into strikes for the story, which is matchmaking only. So technically, it's not single player, even though you can play the story single player, basically, in a way. But you are forced into multiplayer for a couple of missions. But other than that,
The disc does act as an installer for people with data caps. That is one thing that someone did bring up to me, is that even with online-only games, the discs can be very useful because you can actually disconnect your console from the internet, install the game, then turn it back on, so you're not ever actually using any of your data cap. And that is for some people in the United States who get f***ed over because the ISPs here fucking suck in many regions. That is a big thing about
at least
this.
in the US. I don't know about other countries. Usually, like Comcast, they're not any saint, but usually theirs is like a terabyte, and usually they give you a couple warnings, plus a lot of times they don't even do anything about it when I go over. So, and
it really depends on the state. I know, like, I'm in Pennsylvania, and we don't really have data caps, like, at all. Like, that is a foreign thing to me here. I think Tim, in New York, it's also pretty much a foreign thing, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I would go crazy for that.
Yeah, they talked about doing it here, and there was like 100,000 signed petition, and they backed down within like 72 hours.
Well, what was it? I forgot what it was called. It was a big thing a couple of years ago. I know that you'll know because you're an IT professional. Remember they were doing a thing where they
net neutrality.
Yeah, and that was supposed to be real screwed up.
And well, it died, but then they tried to do some things after net neutrality, and everyone was like, "Hey, go screw yourself."
It never went
okay,
through,
we cannot get away with this.
Did it ever come close? Yeah. I don't want to get too in a rabbit hole and go down this, but did it ever come close?
So there was some talk about changing some stuff in like Pennsylvania, specifically with the ISPs, but like the state threatened to change the state law, and they just kind of backed down. So, but yeah, in some regions it is totally screwed up, and for those people, I'm like, yeah, I get why you actually still buy discs. I totally get it.
Now, Centurion Pal, I mean, I would love to know your thoughts on this, because, you know, we saw a huge uproar because of this, and it was just kind of really random on the timeline. I'm like, what's this with the whole Redfall disc thing? And it just kind of, I don't know. I mean, Bethesda corrected it, but just, I don't know. It's kind of a nothing burger in my opinion, but what's your thoughts?
Oh, I'm right there with you on the nothing burger. I mean, I don't know why we got. I agree with Crusader. I agree with everybody here. That the internet infrastructure in the United States is pretty bad. I mean, we're still seeing. I still see articles to this day where people are cheering getting data connections over 100 megabits a second to certain rural parts of the United States. And I mean, that's pretty bad when literally, I mean, there's people that don't even have access to what we consider basic high-speed internet. I mean, the town that my dad was in was at like 25 megabits a second. It was absolutely ridiculous what you had out there. You had just enough to stream Netflix. And so, but I'm also used to games having like we all remember PUBG, the cardboard box. They're the card that was in there to basically give you access to PUBG. So this is why I feel like it's a nothing burger. It's basically the root of a bigger issue, and that is the fact that nobody has access to decent internet. I happen to have a data cap. I actually paid my way out of my data cap, and that was because of my wife's work. With my wife's work and because I cut the cable, I stream everything. I don't have satellite or cable. Everything is delivered through the internet. I play on my Xbox very consistently. My wife works remotely from home. I'm using about 2.5 terabytes of data every single month. I would be a ISP server's dream if I wasn't able to pay my way out of my data cap. But that's pretty much, I have to agree with you, man. It's a nothing burger for me. Because in all actuality, I don't even really go out and buy physical games very much anymore. Purely because, I mean, at least out here in Phoenix, they turned the Target right down the road from me. They turned the physical media section for movies into a bookstore. Like, they're not even really selling physical movies anymore. For me to find and I collect physical movies. For me to find them anymore, I have to buy them on the internet.
Yeah.
And it seems to be also happening with games anymore. When I go to games, there's more catering towards the PlayStation because they have the bigger install base, but anything physical for Xbox is very rarely ever there. And so I've just gotten in the habit of just purchasing digital on a regular basis just out of convenience because I'm tired of hunting for it, at least here in Phoenix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I used to go to Best Buy, Future Shop back in the day, and there'd be aisles of this physical media, movies, games too, and now it's just like you get maybe one or two little aisles, and then that's about it if you're lucky.
They're closing Best Buys here in Phoenix.
Really? Interesting.
Well, they're gonna have certain key stores, but there used to be Best Buys everywhere, and the one by my work. The final day of the doors being open is March 1st. And I think they're going to shut down the other one that's close by to my home. And basically for me to go visit Best Buy now, I'm going to have to go on like a 15-20 minute drive to a bigger part of Phoenix. And I think the only reason why they're going to keep that Best Buy alive is because it's also where they have an appliance store in there where you go and buy your Samsung fridges and all your freaking high-end freaking kitchen shit. So that's where I it's kind of sad, man. You're seeing a lot of the retailers that we grew up with, like my God, does anybody remember Sam Goody?
No.
No, never.
Oh my God.
Yeah. That was great. You listened to your
All right, I'm 10 years younger than you, so it probably shouldn't be a shock.
Dude, Sam Goody was the place where you could go and get all the movies and physical media you could.
You could listen to your CDs before you bought them.
Yes, dude, that was where you would, you go to Walmart, you get the basic version of that movie. We'll use Pitch Black for example, the Vin Diesel movie Pitch Black. You buy that movie at Walmart, you never knew anything outside of that version of it. You go to Sam Goody, they're like, hey, did you know there's a director's cut? Get out, there's a director's cut? Yeah, right here. If you just order it right here, we'll bring it in for you. Like, they would sell you versions of movies that you didn't even knew freaking existed. That place was so awesome. And then obviously Netflix came in and shut down Blockbuster, Planet Video, and all the other rental, like actual brick and mortar rental stores. And then Sam Goody followed in suit with them because they were just like, well, nobody's showing up anymore. We got iTunes and all the other streaming services for music. Nobody's really showing up for movies anymore, and they shut the doors. They were just a victim of the digital age, and it's still slowly happening to this day. But that's where I get frustrated that there's this huge shift to digital everything, but the United States is so antiquated when it comes to the internet.
Well, you know what? You go to that Best Buy, Centurion, and buy like 50 physical discs of Peppa Pig and support them. All right.
Actually, they already took the gaming section apart at that Best Buy.
Those bastards.
That was like the first thing they did because they're like, yeah, we're not liquidating the gaming. Because I was like, are you guys going to liquidate the stuff? Oh, it's already gone. Oh, never mind. You moved it to other stores.
How about you, MLD? I want you to chime in on this one. What do you think about this whole Redfall disc kind of drama that's not a drama?
Yeah, I'm just okay. Well, how it was worded is one thing. Okay, obviously that was a mistake, but I'm just amazed at how fast the bad news traveled with zero fact checking. Like maybe you want to clarify. Like fanboys on Twitter is one thing, but even some gaming publications comment on this too.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
And the reason why they're not fact checking is, I mean, it's straight up what the support site said, right? And that's why you have to write clear, concise, and in context support site stuff, because that is your official word. And if your official word can be easily misconstrued, like it was, then you've screwed yourself, because they're not going to come to you to fact check stuff, because that is the fact checking. The support site is the fact checking. That is like one of those major things that like a lot of people will base their articles and stuff on, is like support articles or the similar kind of articles that go to the press called press releases, right? We've all heard of press releases.
Which I get that, but I mean, we all can't discount the whole. I think there's this whole narrative, just like Xbox. Let's just say there's vultures circling over Xbox like no other brand in gaming. And
I'm gonna be real. I was with the people who thought that Microsoft was doing that, and the reason I thought it was because the whole always online thing, right? Like it all kind of just added up. Does that make sense? And I personally, if I was writing an article on that subject matter, wouldn't have gone anywhere further than the support article, which is why I said the lesson to be learned here is write better support articles.
And while I do see that, I can't help just feel like it got too bad too fast. And it was only because, Xbox bad, everything else is good. Like that kind of like negative sentiment a lot of people have on this subject. I don't know. I feel like it traveled too far too fast, and maybe just, it shouldn't have. Is what I'm saying. Bethesda made the mistake, sure, but I don't know.
It was also a slow Thursday.
The internet just took it to 11 way too quickly.
I'm with General MLD on that. I'm with General on how he feels because we saw it earlier this week with certain websites wanting to somehow coin the narrative that Xbox gamers don't buy games because of some stupid ass physical sales chart.
Wow.
Yeah, like it's more than just a simple mistake on a support page, and I think some fans were trying to display the double standard. I think God of War Ragnarok had this like massive top tier kind of like bundle to buy, and it came with a steelbook, but it said, "Oh, steelbook doesn't have a game inside; it's just a code." And people were saying like, "Oh, where was the outrage for this?" But for Redfall, you guys just pounce on that like a bunch of vultures. I don't know, there definitely is a anti-Xbox bias here.
I'm glad you brought that up because you're right. The Jolinar edition, $200 for a fucking code card.
Thank you. Yeah, that's right. I did hear right.
Now, did they ship that code card before they shipped the Jolinar edition?
No, actually, hear what's even messed up. No, what's messed up is they had Jolinar editions that got messed up at the factory, and they forgot to put the cards in the box.
Yeah, that's like Bungie sold the giant physical edition of Lightfall, and that comes with a digital code. Well, number one, they don't sell it's an expansion, and it's selling it physically. But number two, when you buy their collector's edition from their store, right? You buy it the day they announce it. You get the code the day they announce it, right? So you're not waiting to play it, And if they had done that with the Jolinar edition, I'd be like, all right, whatever, that's actually fine. But like the fact that it's still in the box, it's dumb as hell.
It got so bad that they forgot there was a certain I forget how many units got produced where apparently whoever's job it was to put the card in the box failed at their one task, and they sent out numerous versions of the Jolinar edition without that card in it, and they were writing to PlayStation, and basically PlayStation made some of these people I think wait like 2-3 weeks past the launch date before they were even emailed the code, because PlayStation thought that these people were lying until all of a sudden it was like a large amount of people this happened to. Like literally there was unboxings on Twitch where you would see people opening it up, and it was like a cutout where the card was supposed to be, and it was an empty cutout.
See, that's almost become normal. Like the stupid codes and no physical copy and deluxe editions almost become like a standard, and that's fucking stupid.
This is interesting. I just noticed that the Recore account on Instagram just posted something after 5-6 years. That's interesting.
What?
Yeah.
What?
It's really
what?
Yeah, really random. I know. Sorry, I just happened to be scrolling through Instagram, and Recore Game just kind of tweeted out. I mean, sorry, not tweeted. Just posted something on Instagram. And something very cryptic. There's like a weird. I don't know what it is. And it says, "Anyone know what I'm up to with this cryptic code?" That's kind of weird. Okay. Just very random. Sorry, I thought I'd share that.
It's just Instagram too. They didn't do it on Twitter. I just checked.
Yeah, sorry. I just thought I'd mention that. Very random. It might mean nothing, but I mean, despite Recore's faults, I really loved it personally. But
I liked it.
I liked it though. I thought, there's a lot to dive into there, but I really enjoyed that game. So just again, something to comment on. Okay, guys, I think we've said what we had to with Redfall. Why don't we move on to our last bit of news? It's a beefy one, and it's we've touched on the Microsoft and Activision ordeal. I guess it's been a while since, because we could always
all kind of freaked out about it.
Yeah, exactly, right. I don't freak out about all the little small bits of news, but we're coming up to something big here. And and this week there's the EU hearing where Microsoft will present its defense and arguments for the acquisition of Activision. Now, Sony is expected to be present at this hearing, as well as many other high-profile names with the likes of Nvidia, EA, Google, and Valve, just to name a few. So it's definitely something that we'll need to keep our eyes and ears on, although it is a closed hearing. Tim Bud, dive into it. How are you feeling heading into this closed hearing?
Well, I'll tell you this much. Xbox is, they are telling people this is a big deal. And to be, keep your eyes open that day. The Phil's going, Brad Smith's going, Bobby Kotick's going, Jim Ryan's going for Sony. There'll be other notables there. I think EA's going to be there. Valve, Gabe probably will be there. It's going to be. I wish they could show it on TV. Put it that way. It's going to be intense. There's going to be. I'm sure Phil's going to talk. Jim's going to talk. And they're going to have this roundabout discussion about the deal, and what hopefully comes about after is the time after is what we're looking at. What I'm hearing is very critical. Because if Xbox makes a case, and let's say like in the movies where Brad Smith comes up and he makes a speech and everyone's cheering or whatever, just joking about the theatrics, but if it's a heated discussion and they make a lot of good points, and I do think that they have facts on their side, market share, software sales. The fact that even with Game Pass, Sony, Sony's outselling on software 70-30. Xbox has a 10% share in UK, in EU, in Europe itself, a little bit higher in UK, but not anything to write home about. So some of the arguments I think against it are pretty ridiculous. And I think that Xbox is going to have a really strong chance to, make its case. And I can tell you this much. Xbox and Activision, they're both super piped in here now. And when I say that, like, they're dug in. They're going ahead as per if the deal is going to go through. Basically, they're going to go to court. If I know that there's with the CMA, they can appeal. FTC, foregone conclusion, they're going to go to court. They know they're going to smash FTC in court. And I do think that they think EU is going to have remedies, behavioral remedies that they can come to an agreement. Maybe it's Call of Duty perpetuative, meaning whenever it comes out on PlayStation. I think they'll do what they have to do to get this deal done. And, for about 3 weeks, I was just like, this deal is not going to go through. But Microsoft honestly has me feeling, knowing, the conversations that I've had off the record and stuff like that. All I can tell you is that they are like super confident they're going to get through. And I think they're taking that, I think they're taking it. They're going to take it to the end. Put it that way, because they feel like the argument is a non-starter. It really, if you look at the facts, you look at the market share, you look at the share of games sold on software, you look at, whatever you want to look, any metric, this is not going to debilitate or catastrophically change the dynamic here. It's gonna give Xbox a bump, but the deal is also on mobile and also the storefront, Battlefront or whatever they have, BattleNet. They have, in mobile, it's not even the actual. It would be a welcome addition to the mobile gaming, storefronts. It would make it for competition. So there's a lot of good things that could come up with this. Activision, super Kotig on down, want to be with Xbox. I don't think that anybody should be forced to divest. I think that that's way too critical, or way too
Extreme.
heavy. I'm a little tired, so maybe not the best of words right now, but way too much. Basically, I think that, to be honest, they can come up with some type of deal where even Sony can, get maybe something that's, you would say, is a little much for Sony. I think for whatever way that they could do, they can make it happen. And I do think in the end, I think they're gonna get this. They're gonna get it done by hook or by crook. But February 21st, we're talking about the media. They're claiming it's their last ditch effort. You and I know that that's complete bullshit, because they'll be reporting the next little thing the day after. You know what I mean? Like the little bit of a thing. But it is a real chance to, make your case. And as Foss Patents on Twitter explains too, those are the days are critical. So basically, if they make a big play, and and they get the people talking, they can possibly really come to a deal. And if they could get to like some type of place where they could get behavioral remedies and whatever it takes to get the deal done, I really believe FTC is going to crumble. They've had a lot of issues, and they were really heavy-handed in this. And at the end of the day, I mean, Xbox is like, Microsoft is super confident that I think they'll just go through and just say, you want to take us to federal court, take us to federal court, because they know that FTC doesn't have a case. And they were, it was basically, Lena Khan was on a political mission against big tech, and they wanted to make sure that their scrutiny was high, which the scrutiny on this, I think we all can agree, has been a 10. So, there's been no free passes. There's been, nothing given here to Xbox or Microsoft. It's been fully vetted. And I'm really hoping that we can come to an end. Stay tuned February 21st. And the next couple of days, you can follow my Twitter. You can follow Foss Payton's. Post up any, all of us really. Post Crusaders. We'll be on top of it, and hopefully we can really put this to bed, because I know, I've been a baby about it. I admit, I've been knee-jerked. Went crazy one night about Frank Shaw. I had like Pacta telling me to shut up in DMs. You know what I mean? Like, it's just been really annoying, because I don't want to talk about this stuff. I want to talk about games. I don't want to talk about CMA. I want to talk about, RDNA 2, or, what's the next games that's using mesh shaders, or whatever. I don't want to talk about, or what studio they're going to buy, or I don't want to talk about this. And, thanks to every one of the fans, the people that come here, the people in chat, fans of the show, for just dealing with me Babylon about it, because I hate talking about it, but I do want to give you guys a somewhat of a knowledgeable opinion, or and I've talked to a lot of people. There's people writing to the CMA. You can write to the CMA if you want, if you feel real strongly about it. There's an email address. If you need the email address, you can just hit me up with a DM.
Yes.
There's been a lot of Xbox fans that have written, and from what I've heard, they read these these emails. So
they ignore them if they don't come from the correct geopolitical bloc. So if you're in the UK, email the CMA. If you're not in the UK, don't bother because they're going to ignore it because
right,
you're not within their purview.
right.
Mhm.
So if you are in America, do not bother writing the CMA. You can write the FTC.
Yeah.
Mhm. That's right. Let's see here. Shockley, buddy, I mean, I would love your thoughts on this. What do you think about, Xbox? Are we going to be putting up a defense here? Putting up their thoughts with regards to, why this deal should go through. I mean, should we be concerned? I mean, do you agree with what Tim said? Please let us know.
Yeah, as far as with the deal, I think they're making their case, pretty clear as far as, that it's. I think Satya was kind of comparing like, hey, like as far as like, look at PlayStation, look at Nintendo, look at the, or just PlayStation, which is more their direct competitor. Look at their kind of stranglehold they have on the market, just like in other countries outside of the U.S. Especially like you made a big point of like Japan and Europe even as a whole. So not that they have to compete, but it's like Sony did kind of have that head start where, for a good, almost a decade where like, Sega and Nintendo made it super easy. Hey, we're just going to almost crash and implode our market share and give it all to Sony, which yeah, they had competitors with those two, but like those two were just, coming out as an utter disaster that gen, and they kind of took in the reins. And then when Xbox took over, like to replace kind of like Sega's spot, they were a newcomer. A lot of people, even myself included, back then was like, there's no way they can come in and compete. They're gonna get bounced out, hella early. And Nintendo, we saw what Nintendo did. So they had like 2 generations where they could just dominate the market because either the players there just didn't know what they were doing or just like were super stubborn and didn't adapt. And then the others were newcomers and couldn't compete on that level in that market yet. So they've been able to build up this brand and dominance. And then now when you actually had, Microsoft really competing with the 360, and then I would say now this gen, even with the 360, like it was just trying to get them to get to even though 360 was having like Microsoft was having their best run of, the Xbox division. It was just to kind of like get neck and neck with them finally. So I mean, as far as the, I think they're making a pretty good case as far as just everything that they've kind of stated of like, hey, if we don't, it's not like, hey, we can't compete, but hey, let us get some more of the market share. Because like they said, they're not going to make it exclusive, what everybody's worried about. And they're even trying to sign 10-year deals. So I don't understand why it's such a big issue if they're about this one game. Whereas, they let Bungie, who's still like one of the biggest players in first person, and Destiny's probably the biggest, I would say, kind of like looter shooter in that market. And I didn't even see there was any kind of hearing or anybody like worried about what would happen with Bungie's games. They just stated, hey, we don't have any exclusive deals. We don't have to have you sign a 10-year deal, whatever. We're just saying, hey, they're going to, for what we see in the future coming, those games are coming to all platforms. And then no one bat an eye. But, with Call of Duty, everybody's like losing their mind. But
It's the difference in value.
Yeah, I mean, there is.
You're talking a $40 billion franchise versus a was it $3 billion, $4 billion? How much did they buy all of like Bungie, including their
like 3, so 3 something.
Yeah, you're talking for Call of Duty alone's a $40 billion franchise total valuation.
Yeah,
not right.
But then you see them like, I get that part, but then who knows what do you evaluate? I mean, you might not evaluate like Square Enix that high, but it seems like almost whether it's Square Enix or, I mean, you can just name off other big devs, and in the foreseeable future, it looks like Sony's sure, they didn't buy Square, they didn't buy some of these other big publishers, but they're locking down everything and anything that they can even get their hands on for 2 years. And at that point, we don't know if that dev will be even. There might not even be a fan base for like Final Fantasy come back to. You know, if they're like, hey, should we finally bring it out? This 2-year deal's up, and we're like, now we've kind of pissed them off and screwed them over. We might not have any base there to, they're kind of damaging, and because that's what they're getting at, damaging your competitor. They're kind of doing that by like locking down like every single thing in long deals.
I agree with that, and that's definitely something that I think is going to be mentioned.
Yeah,
like it's not Rise of the Tomb Raider, and they helped with publishing, and it was one title. They're like doing everything.
They will bring up the cumulative effect, because any one title in that regard is nothing. It is nothing. The cumulative effect of all of it, I still don't even think matches the singularity that is Call of Duty, because Call of Duty is the third largest revenue maker on almost every platform, if not second or first, right? And that's the difference. Call of Duty makes more money in a year than Square Enix makes in 5 in total, right?
Wouldn't their case be like, hey, we can make this deal whether or not you let us purchase Activision anyway? We could still damage and hurt our competitor just by, hey, Activision, you know how they kind of screwed your deal about you getting paid, like Bobby Kotick?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, how about you make us a deal? Let's hit them where it hurts, and hey, we'll pay you a good sum of money.
They could, and that is.
So why is there fear even that when they could just do it anyway? So them buying it doesn't negate whether they can do it or not.
Because that kind of deal is and always will be only temporary. A Call of Duty exclusivity deal that is negotiated will only be negotiated for a certain amount of time, which means that any competitor can come back in and negotiate later.
Perpetual? Can they do in perpetuity?
They could in perpetuity say, as long as there is a comparable PlayStation, we will launch it on that.
Yeah.
That being said, that's a very hard contract to write.
Right.
What they may do is say, as long as they may do it in 10-year blocks, and they may make the commitment to renegotiate the 10-year block in Infinium
with a 10-year block with a 1-year deal.
Yeah, so and they could say
the last year's one on PlayStation every.
And then they could say,
is there anybody in the panel that believes the deal's not going to go through?
Not going to go through at all. No, it'll go, at least in some part will go through.
No, it'll go through. Xbox.
I do not know if it will. If when it is all said and done and everything is checked, every box is checked, if Microsoft will own every part of Activision Blizzard King.
I don't know.
I think they will. That is where I will say I have no idea. Right?
They
may only end up with. They may only end up with Blizzard King and several IPs from the Activision studios.
Yeah,
that is a possibility.
I can see it being done with some real heavy
it's a blow itself.
It is not. Divestiture is not an uncommon thing to see happen. We saw it with when Disney had to divest Fox Sports. It happens.
What did they have to divest Disney?
Fox Sports. Disney had to divest Fox Sports when they were buying 20th Century Fox because Disney owned ESPN.
I don't even think they even. Well, I think that was maybe like 1% of the deal.
But the thing is, like, there's so many other publishers out there. I mean, okay, yes, Activision Blizzard. I mean, they're a huge player in the space. But I mean,
it's literally all comes down to the amount of money that company actually brings. That specifically Activision brings in the console space. Like the sheer volume of revenue that they bring in, and having a first-party control. That's the ultimate fear that the regulators are going to have, specifically with Call of Duty and specifically with in regards to the console platforms. That's the biggest argument that they really have at this point. They also have the minor argument with the new, like, the subscription services and cloud. That's not a real argument. It's too theoretical. The argument they have is the one company having so much sheer control over how like the revenue flow of the console space, and that company being an owner. Like that's the strong argument in play today. I don't think it's a good enough argument. Personally, you want my opinion? I don't think it's a good enough argument. But
doesn't that only
evidently,
put them like second behind Sony?
it does, but it
when
lets
they
them,
added
it
that
does let them. It puts them in
Tencent
second
too.
now, and that would imply that Sony's revenue wouldn't go down. Having them be in sheer control of the IP even into the future means that even after these deals are up, they could completely foreclose and pull Call of Duty from everywhere else. I don't see them doing
Yeah,
that. I
but-
think it's an idiotic argument, but they have that capability.
They
and
should make
that's
their
the fear.
point. Minecraft. Look what we did with that.
You're right,
We
and
could
that's
have
been
hurt
the point,
you.
and I agree with you.
Look how big it is.
All I got
And
is
look, we didn't do it, and we had
I
no
think-
deals.
I think one of the strongest moves they could make right now is announce ZeniMax Online's next MMO early and announce it as fully multi-platform and show that even with Bethesda, it is a case by case. And oh look, this is a gigantic multiplayer game. We want it everywhere. That is one of the strongest moves that they could make right now, in my opinion.
what I would say
Because
too. Not to interrupt,
What?
Crusader. It's
Go ahead.
just like if this deal does get blocked, which I don't think it will, but if it does, Microsoft would just go scorched earth
It's-
and buy like several other publishers and developers. But yeah,
yeah,
I would hope that they would do something like that, but I do think there's a chance that they might not be able to do. I think it's a fit. Put it this way, I was on the other end of the spectrum for about 3 weeks. I said this deal wasn't going to get done. I just feel the way they've been so steadfast, and
there may also be like a joint ownership plan that is put into effect with the Activision, with Activision itself as a company. I could see there being like a joint ownership where Activision itself remains a public company that has multiple other companies that are allowed to come in and invest into portions of it. That would be another interesting solution that could come into play, where like it becomes an industry like kind of neutral ground.
Mhm.
It's very it'll be very interesting to see how this all ends up.
yeah.
Because
I really can't wait until when it's over. And
I can almost guarantee they will own Blizzard and King by the end of this. There is no strong
I think
argument that says
King-
that wouldn't
yeah.
allow them, right? Like I think you can almost guarantee that at this point.
Right.
It is specifically the Activision
But
segment, and not even
if they do, like, let's say it divests, Call of Duty
Well-
divest, doesn't the price then have to
so
change?
what
for
would
them?
happen is they would go through with the transaction as planned, and then they would have to sell or make the company or make Activision itself an independent company within so many years.
Okay.
Does that make sense? They would
But
have
how would they? Okay, let's say that they want to. Let's say that the price of the price of the deal is $67 billion.
and they would pay that $67 billion.
So then, but how much? But they're not getting any of the revenue.
Then Microsoft, after the deal is closed, would have to turn around and either sell or make the Activision label, or create a new label that is specifically just Call of Duty. Either sell it or make it an independent entity.
Yeah, that's not an option.
Right.
They want Call of Duty.
Well, you're right. But however, I guarantee that if they say no go to the entire deal, they will salvage parts of the deal. That will
What if
happen.
they just use the
this is-
same engine, same type of same everything, but they called it smaller
Call of
Duty?
Valor.
So that
Call of
Would that
Shooty.
be
it
illegal?
depends,
Call of Duty.
because they will have to come to an agreement before the initial deal closes, right? So what will happen is, if they are told that they have to divest either the Call of Duty brand, or because the CMA, you can look at what the CMA actually recommended in its very initial. We haven't actually negotiated with them yet, and so these are just the. We had a panel of people come up with just some initial thoughts on what it would look like for remedies for this, and you'll notice that they went as far as saying that the total divestiture of Activision and Blizzard to as little as the divestiture of just the
Blizzard.
Call of Duty brand and the studios that work on it specifically,
Right.
which means that Microsoft has if they can't get the CMA to budge and they can't get behavioral remedies in with the CMA, then they could do as little as divesting the core Call of Duty studios and the Call of Duty brand, and either selling them to another company such as, let's say, Epic. I think Epic would be one of the ones that would be interested in a merger in that scenario.
How
Or
much would they sell it for?
that is the question. They would have to come up with that themselves. They would have to evaluate it and
Well,
sell it.
wouldn't
That is a
somebody
whole.
like Epic know that they're See, what I don't understand is like, yeah,
It wouldn't be an instantaneous thing. They would kind of own Call of Duty, but it would be in like this kind of like weird gray area where they own it, but they don't.
Right.
They have to be in the process of trying to sell it.
Yeah.
Or spinning it off as independent.
No, but
that is the other thing. They don't have to sell it to someone. They can spin it off as an
independent. They can't touch any of the revenue that makes, so that's its own company.
The revenue would kind of come into them. Like, it would come into them for a time while they control it, and then it would be spun off as its own company. That is all very complicated things that the lawyers would have answers for.
Maybe that's why they're so confident, is because I guess if
they are very confident that this deal is going to close in some way, shape, or form. At the end of the day, they will own something.
They really want it for the mobile portion.
They've even said that since day one, that they've wanted it to expand their PC and mobile opportunities.
Right.
Call of Duty is huge. Everyone looks at Call of Duty and they're like, yeah, they want Call of Duty. And of course they want Call of Duty.
Activision Blizzard King, it addresses all facets that they want to strive for. And yeah, they want to hit up mobile, and of course, and this affects cloud gaming as well, right? And of course their PC efforts. I mean, hey, I've always said that, hey, the way that they're pushing it with Game Pass Ultimate, Game Pass PC, they've been actually really growing on the PC front again, and I've been happy to see it. But, something like this would really help as well, especially with the Blizzard aspects.
Oh, yeah.
And so with a divestiture, I don't know where it would go. We're all talking hypotheticals here, right? Yeah. And so with the divestiture, right? It could be as simple as they divest Call of Duty and they keep the rest of Activision, right? They could keep Toys for Bob and stuff like that, right? And that's why there's multiple tiers of it. Diablo's under Blizzard, right? So if they're just selling, if they were to divest the entirety of Activision, right? Let's say they divest everything that Activision has. So we're divesting stuff as small as like Tony Hawk Pro Skater and Hexen and some of the smaller stuff, right? They would still be keeping all of Blizzard and King, right? Yeah. And that's where your people should be. I don't want to say setting expectations, because that comes out wrong. Like, you should be expecting this, but you should expect this as something that could happen, not something that will happen. Does that make sense? Like, expect that it is a potential that they could divest the Call of Duty brand, that they could divest the entirety of Activision, that they could, because that's what the CMA put forward as potential remedies. Now, and the CMA even stated that they know that this 10-year contract is in play, right? That they haven't taken it into any consideration yet, because the entirety of their first part was literally just determining whether or not it would impact the market in a significant lessening of competition, right? And they determined that it could. Their analysis, they said that it could. So now they're looking at remedies to solve this is how it could. And if we go through these remedies,
behavioral too. And there's only one other time they did that, and they actually, in that case, I believe they agreed behavioral.
The very interesting thing about the 10-year contract is it is by definition a behavioral remedy, because it is impacting the way that Microsoft behaves. The thing that is unique about the 10-year publishing contract that Microsoft would be forming with Nintendo and PlayStation, and they offered it to Steam, but Steam said no, because they were like, we don't need it. They're good enough at their word for us. But, the thing about that contract is it is a standard industry contract. The only thing that's not standard about it is the length, right? Everyone has publishing agreements with everyone. That if you're on Microsoft storefront, you have a publishing agreement with them to sell stuff on the storefront and how you act as a publisher and stuff like that. That's what the Call of Duty agreement is in a nutshell. It's just 10 years long. They're usually only 2 to 3. And you renew them constantly. And they're normally not for a particular game. They're normally for all of EA, right? And what's very unique about that is the reason why the CMA and the EU and them, they don't like behavioral remedies is they have to set up a temporary positions plural to monitor the behavior, right? In this case, with this standard industry contract, they don't really have to monitor anything because the party on the other end of the contract will be monitoring it for them, right? This is a standard contract that is expected in the industry, and it will be Nintendo and Sony and Valve and them kind of monitoring it for them because this isn't a contract that's out of the ordinary for the industry. And that's what makes it very unique as a behavioral remedy, in that the CMA might not actually be opposed to it as a behavioral remedy because it's so unique to the industry and it's not really something that we have in other places to see. And that's what makes it so unique, in that it actually might be enough for the CMA. We don't know, right? They haven't taken into consideration what it would do. And that is a very strong argument they can get because the CMA doesn't really have to form anything to watch this situation. Because it would be the competition itself that would go, hey, they are not abiding by this contract that they signed with us. You need to,
and then if
you need to screw them up.
And then if CMA does say their answers are ridiculous and Microsoft can't agree to it, they can appeal, correct?
They can appeal. However, it basically, the appeals process in the United Kingdom for it is essentially, hey, we're taking this to court, we're appealing it. The court will say that the CMA did not do its due diligence when researching this, and basically the whole process starts over.
No, and that's
right. It's not that the court overrules the CMA. It says the CMA didn't do a good job. They have to start over.
No, and that's well said. Oh no, honestly, that's well said. Not to interrupt Tim, but no, just some great points there. But MLD, I mean, I would love to hear your thoughts on this too, because like, again, we can go like on and on about this. Like, you know, I guess we've tried to stay away from things over the past few months, even weeks. But what are your thoughts on this hearing issue?
Oh yeah, like I'm just glad we're finally in the final stages of this thing in the last few months. The deal, in my opinion, is not in danger. EU seems more reasonable, at least from the news that is reported. The CMA was the toughest one, and even they offered solutions. People expected worst case an outright block, but I mean the CMA, they're offering remedies, whether it's structural or behavioral. So I think that was actually a more good news than we gave it credit for in the beginning there. So Xbox has options. I hope they don't have to divest anything, because I hope that the behavioral remedies are enough, as people said before. They wrote the CMA wrote the findings without taking into account the 10-year plan officially. So now they will officially look at a 10-year plan and see how that can be reasonably enforced and checked. That should be enough. I'm hoping here. And I don't know. And I can't help but comment on Sony here. Like they're doing all the complaining and all these like subpoena delay after extension. These guys are being so shady and petty. Like you make all the complaints, just back it up. Give us the evidence. They're stalling for time. They're being, it's almost childish. I know it's in their best interest to stall this thing as long as possible and possibly kill the deal, but come on. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's just like high school kind of shit right here, I don't know. It's gonna go through, I feel. Guys, anyone know, was divesting Blizzard an option?
Yes.
It was. So the options that the CMA listed out, there were 4 of them. It was divest Call of Duty, divest Activision, divest Activision Blizzard. Those were the 4. Those were the 3 things that they initially just kind of threw out there as possible remedies, right? So it could be as little as just Call of Duty, if that was feasible. It could be as much as Activision Blizzard as an entity.
But not Blizzard by themselves.
No. The common factor was the Call of Duty franchise, and then they just kind of, and the reason they add more to it, right? You might say like, oh, well, why wouldn't Microsoft just divest Call of Duty, right? That might be difficult to do,
Yeah.
Right? And so they might have to do a little bit more. They might have to do the whole Activision brand, or they might have to do the whole Activision Blizzard brand. And that's why they listed them from like smallest to highest.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Does
Yeah,
that
it
make
does.
sense? Okay.
Yeah, I was just hoping, like, I mean, if
No.
if we had to choose, like, to divest something, like King is out of the question. They want that mobile push,
Well,
right?
that King isn't going to affect the market in any meaningful way.
Right. Yeah.
And Blizzard also isn't going to affect the whole determination was specifically that Call of Duty could impact the console market and the two nascent markets of cloud and
right. They also
cloud
mentioned
and
XCloud and World of Warcraft, which is why I was thinking maybe. Like, I feel like between the three, I feel like maybe Blizzard is the most expendable. Like, because I feel like Call of Duty is a big part of why they're doing this whole thing. They want to bolster Game Pass. They want those marketing deals.
Yeah, it's also the biggest pain point.
Because you know, people see how Sony wants that stuff so bad. Like,
yep.
Yeah, so they want that piece of that pie themselves. Because Call of Duty, it's a system seller. So if there's only an Xbox Call of Duty holiday bundle, it's gonna sell. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that is also like a non-negotiable. They want that. They will not divest Call of Duty. So I don't know. Maybe again, I hope they don't have to divest anything. But
it all depends on the ratio of what do they actually want to get out of this in the end. Mm-hmm. Is not getting Call of Duty a deal breaker over getting the rest of it if they can? That's the question, right? And so you really should we really shouldn't be thinking of it as, oh, they're not gonna get that Call of Duty is a deal breaker. Well, Call of Duty legitimately might not be a potential factor, right? And so we have to look at it as, does Microsoft actually want Blizzard, and do they actually want King? Right? That's the real question. Because if Call of Duty becomes the hanging point, if they walk away from the entire deal, then they didn't really care about Blizzard or King, right? If they divest Call of Duty, well, it's because they recognize that the governments of the world aren't going to let them buy Call of Duty, and that they still want the other stuff because they want the other stuff. That's how it will end up. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay.
They're never going to divest Call of Duty in order to buy the other two, because they want those other two more. It's going to be, well, do we actually want those two, right? And that's why I'm saying, like, I can almost guarantee Blizzard and King are going to be purchased, because of course they want one of the best mobile makers in the world, and of course they want to expand PC Game Pass when PC Game Pass is booming. The question is, really, will the world governments let them buy Call of Duty, which makes as much money as it does on the console front, and would give them a potentially large amount of control? That's the real question, right?
Mm-hmm. And
that's why I say the deal goes through. I just don't know if they will be able to convince people that they should be allowed to own Call of Duty.
I cannot wait for the stipulations.
I can't wait to read the fine print.
Yeah. Now, Centurion, I know you've been waiting in the wings, and I cannot wait to hear your thoughts on this. Obviously, big topic, right? We got this hearing a few days away. Well, what are your thoughts on it?
We're finally going to get some answers. I mean, I've been talking about this for a long time. I've even had the good graces to interview a lawyer from the UK with my buddy Stubbs. Steel Rain happens to be an acquisition lawyer over in the UK. Everybody wants to talk about appeals. There is no appeals process in the UK. I think you touched on it, Crusader, but yeah, we need to throw the word appeal out the window, flush it down the toilet. There's no appeals process. There's a tribunal called CAT that you can file a complaint to, and the only thing CAT is going to do is toss the ball back to the CMA and say, hey, over. you got to start over. And the CMA can come up with the exact same conclusion. Yep. It's not like here in the United States, you file an appeal, you get everybody in a courtroom, and you present all your evidence to a judge that is not the FTC. Nope. Over in the UK, the decision belongs to CMA, period, End of story. All legal avenues lead right back to them. And that's why they thought the CMA was going to be their biggest hurdle, but this whole situation has turned into an absolute shit show. I mean, and the funny part is, like, actually what's more funny for me is watching what's happening to Sony. Sony's been running around, going to Brussels, having all these these little sit down discussions with every regulator they can, crying about how that this is going to impact their business and bad this, bad that, feel sorry for Sony, bad. And that's when Microsoft came out almost a month ago at this point, I think even longer, and basically said, put your money where your mouth's at, produce the evidence. And literally Sony's exact response was, we shouldn't have to prove that. So we're supposed to take your word for it. We're just supposed to believe you because you're Sony. That no court system works based on someone's word. That's why there's this really cool thing called evidence. And Microsoft has subpoenaed Sony for said evidence. And Sony has cried, kicked, and screamed about this subpoena to the point now they've gotten their 4th extension. They have until March 1st to actually furnish Microsoft with the evidence that proves that this is going to hurt the Sony. And also some of the other evidence that Microsoft has subpoenaed is documentation on these closed door sessions negotiating with third-party companies. Like, Microsoft has always suspected that Sony is putting in words in their contracts that keep games off Game Pass, but they have never seen anything concrete. They've had developers and publishers.
That's not quite right. That's not quite right. They don't know the extent to how many of the deals that they have.
Exactly. That's why they've only heard about it. They've only heard about it from publishers and developers that are willing to talk to them that won't go on record. There's nothing on record. That's why I was saying they don't have anything on record, black and white, to prove this. It's just somebody sitting down at the Olive Garden with Phil Spencer or another Microsoft executive and saying, hey, this is what Sony had us do, but we're not going to go on record or show you any documentation to prove that. Well, for the first time, Microsoft wants to see documentation of this. And like you said, they want to see the full extent of what Sony has been negotiating for. One of them they want to look at is the Square Enix deal with Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, they have to know that the deals exist. Like logically, they have to concretely know that the deals exist because they would be negotiating with someone to get something on Game Pass formally, and they tell them they can't because they have there's a contract in place that says they can't.
Right.
They don't know how many of those contracts exist. That's the big thing. That is the big thing. They do not know how many of those contracts exist.
Right, and that's why they've been asking for a lot of documentation. I mean, Sony tried to come out and say it was going to cost Sony $2 million to put together all this documentation that they were asking for, and that Sony was asked. Well, one figure I heard was Sony said $2 million, which I thought was absolutely ridiculous because Microsoft has even said that most of the documents they're asking for should be available digitally. It's not like somebody's going to have to go down into a file cabinet and dig this stuff out. A lot of this should be digital records. And that's why
20 million.
20. No, I know there's 2 in there.
You were missing a 0.
Yeah. It's still even at $2 million to say that's going to cost $2 million to furnish paperwork. That's kind of interesting. So from what
I think the reason they're saying it's going to cost so much isn't even what documents, it's how many, because they went the whole way back to 2013.
Oh yeah, no, they're asking for like reports from executives that have gone on these, basically these adventures to the third-party studios and they've negotiated for stuff. I think they've even asked for like even stuff on their advertising. I mean, like they're wanting to crack Sony wide open, and that's where Sony is either going to have to really, at this point, in my opinion, start either A, playing ball with Microsoft and just dealing with whatever happens and quit interfering, or B, ride the course you're on. And even if the deal doesn't go through, Microsoft is going to have so much dirt on you, and a lot of documentation we all know is going to be leaked out some of this stuff is going to be put into public record. There is going to be redactions, but we know people literally know how to read between the black bars and figure out what some of the stuff is said in the redactions. A lot of Sony's business practices, like you said, all the way back to 2013, are probably going to be exposed within the next 60 to 90 days. And this has led to the speculation that, we all saw that supposedly a Sony jet flew into Seattle. I happen to be with Destin Laguerre on saying that probably more than likely these were some executives going over to Bungie hanging out.
Yeah.
But there was one person that I listened to his video, and he said they could have made a side stop at Microsoft, not to discuss anything with the deal, but to discuss what documentation that they are going to be required, because they are negotiating on what documentation they can give Microsoft to resolve the subpoena without an FTC judge basically saying, give them everything they want, which is why they keep asking for extensions, because right now it's give Microsoft everything they want on this date. And there is some speculation that Sony is in negotiations with Microsoft on what extent of documentation will Microsoft be happy with without going with the full extent of what's in the subpoena. And I'm ready for some answers. I'm ready for this to be over. I mean, the whole ABK deal, I knew it was going to consume the community, which is why I told everybody to reserve yourself back in January of last year, that this was going to be a very long, lengthy process, a very emotional, lengthy process. But now, the funny part is, though, we're going to see at least the gaming community and even consumers at this point of gaming, not the people that are out listening to podcasts, but anybody that just likes to sit down and read some articles on their phone, they're going to have a little bit of a deeper understanding now of what some of these companies have gone through when it comes to Sony and Microsoft purchasing, some of the stuff Sony had to go through with getting Bungie, some of the stuff Microsoft had to go through to get Bethesda. But this is also going to change the landscape of gaming in the fact that, for starters, we're going to see a lot of dividing lines now between Sony and Microsoft for sure. We thought there was blood in the water in the beginning before this deal. Sony and Microsoft are not getting along at this point, in my opinion. Us gamers are going to suffer. There's going to be less cross-play opportunities for developers with games. We're going to see less cooperation in the market with game companies, because it is going to, at this point, probably turn into a nuclear arms race on who can consume who. And whatever companies don't get bought up, we're going to see a lot of back-end third-party deals. Basically, this person gets this game, that person gets that game. There's going to be a lot of money thrown around, and the best way to in my opinion, my speculation is gaming is going to turn into the Monday Night Wars between Ted Turner and Vince McMahon. About literally, we've got company A versus company B, and everybody's going to be throwing money. Checkbooks are going to be open, and it's literally going to be a chaos until the dust settles and we all see where the cards fall, kind of thing.
Sunday, be there.
That's why, it's going to be at the end of the day, man, gaming has been changed because of this ABK deal. And, everybody's wanting to talk about Call of Duty and all the great things that could happen for Microsoft. But on an industry level, we're going to see a lot less growth, because we're going to see companies that are going to be, can we be bought? Can we not be bought? Is this whole war on the tech industry going to go pretty freaking sour, and they're just going to look at us anytime we try to do anything? And then we've got Sony and Microsoft that are both going to be wanting to freaking one up each other at this point, because they're going to feel freaking Microsoft's going to feel burned, whether they get Activision or not. We already saw Sony tried to screw things up for them, so there's already going to be some animosity.
Yeah, I know, and this I really hope this comes to a close soon, or sooner than later, obviously, but hopefully we get some answers in the coming weeks, and yeah, I just guys, I want it to be done as much as you do, but we just gotta be patient. Gotta be patient. It's I agree totally with, like, I mean, with everybody on the panel really, but yeah, Centurion, I remember since day one he's said that it was going to be a long drawn out process, and yeah, to the T it has been. But
I remember when they first came out, everybody was like ready to start playing Call of Duty on Game Pass the minute it was announced. And I was like, yeah, it don't work like that. And I told everybody, beware of Chairman Khan. Chairman Khan has freaking done some crazy stuff, and lo and behold, I mean, dude, you want to know, like, you heard about what's going on in the FTC right now, right?
Oh yeah, didn't somebody resign?
So you're supposed to have 5 members as part of what they call commissioners, and then you have the chairman who makes the number 6 vote. The 5 commissioners are basically Democrat or Republican.
No, it's 4 and a chairman. There's 5 total.
There's supposed to be 5 total, but
yeah,
let's just be blunt. The U.S. government can't get along for 5 damn minutes to freaking elect the fifth commissioner. So late for the longest time, it's been 4 commissioners, and 3 of them are Democrat, and the 4th one was a Republican, and you got Chairman Khan. So it's
Chairman Khan's one of the 3. The chairman is one of the 5.
Okay.
Oh, I'm getting screwed out. They consider them all freaking.
And it is.
I know it's supposed to be like an uneven number.
They're all nominated. No, so there has to be 4 Democrats, 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans. Period. There has to be. And then the third one is supposed to be the
swing vote.
They're a swing vote, and they're typically the chairman, and the chairman typically gets reappointed every presidential term.
Yeah, the chairman. So you have chairman and commissioner. So Khan is the chairman. She was appointed by was appointed by the president. She wasn't elected by the Congress or the other ones. Yeah, now we're getting a political BS.
No, she was nominated she was nominated, went through Congress, they appointed her. The thing that was interesting about her is typically the president is supposed to declare that person's going to be the chairman during the nomination process. Not a requirement, just because the president gets to pick which one's the chairman of the 5. That's just a power they have laid out in whatever law makes it. Now he's supposed to tell them, and he didn't, and they probably wouldn't have actually appointed her, they wouldn't have ratified her vote if they had known that she was going to be the chairman.
See, that's where, I mean, what's going on, Invader, is, so like he said, there's supposed to be 2 Democratic commissioners and 2 Republican commissioners, and then you got the presidential elect, which is the chairman. And basically, for the longest time, it's been 1 Republican versus 3 Democrats, and the Republican finally threw their arms up and said F it, and they decided to put in for their resignation. And during the resignation, in the resignation letter, they completely slammed Chairman Khan in saying that she is on some crazy ass crusade against the tech industry, and that she is doing things that completely do not line up with how the FTC is supposed to be regulating companies and doing their job. And at this point, the Republican side of the FTC basically says they will take no part in how that the FTC is trying to run itself, because that they don't agree with it and they won't participate in it. So now our president and the government that we're under here in the United States now has to come together and figure out how to get the Republican side of the FTC going again, because this could throw a monkey wrench in things getting done on the FTC side, because those Republicans are there for a reason.
Yeah, so the whole thing is, legally they are supposed to be impartial, which means that they legally have to have representation for both of the major parties, and then the chairman will always be the swing between them. Basically, whatever party's in power at the time determines who the swing is. That's just how it's always worked. But because they don't have that impartiality right now, they are subject to wild basically like super wild cases to be brought against them in the court system, because they by definition don't have that impartiality, even though they're voting. They've been voting so, and for how long it's been. And so they may actually lose Supreme Court cases that are brought against them because of this. It is actually really bad look for the FTC right now.
Interesting.
Right.
Really bad legally.
That's why I'm saying, in my opinion, the only thing Microsoft needs to worry about right now are the CMA and the EU, because the FTC is literally eating itself alive on the inside, and they have literally already gnawed off one of their arms.
Yeah.
No, interesting. Yeah.
I also wouldn't be shocked if depending on how everything goes down, if we don't hear more and more and more shakeups at the FTC, and actually what their ultimate power, like how they can operate, will end up. Because I forget what law is the one that actually gives the FTC the power, like their power, it bestows their powers to the agency. But there's sections of it that are being challenged in the court system right now.
Hey, real quick, I'm not trying to. I just want to. I see what's going on in the chat.
Yeah.
Earlier I brought up the Monday Night War, and Vince McMahon once said something in an interview against the Monday Night Wars when they talked to him about Ted Turner, and he said only a fool competes the way your competitor wants you to compete. When you compete on a level that your competitor didn't see coming, that makes you aggressive.
Yeah.
So you never compete with somebody the way you want to. So Microsoft is never going to do the same thing Sony does, because that just makes you a fool.
Interesting.
Yep.
All right. But guys, I just realized the time. I know we've went on about things a little longer than we usually do, but I mean, I've been having an awesome time just like chatting about all this, and especially when we didn't have last week's episode. But great, it's been like a really awesome chat. But I think I'm going to start to close things off. But does anybody else have anything to say before we start closing things? Yes, no? All right. Well, guys, I think that about does it for tonight's offerings. And hey, we covered quite a bit tonight. We went over Xbox Game Pass affecting game sales. Obviously, the whole Redfall disc thing, kerfluffle, whatever you want to call it, drama that happened. And of course, to close things off, we had the Xbox Activision hearings, the EU hearings that are coming in the next couple of days. We're looking forward to that. But yeah, there's great fun times all around. And for those of you who tuned in, hey, thank you for stopping by and staying for our extended chat. And if you enjoyed the chat tonight, then please consider dropping a like, subbing to the channel, and sharing out the show to let everybody know about it. Because, hey, we want to have more people a part of our shows going forward. Anyways, enough of me. Let me move over to the outros. TimDog had to cut out early, but hey, he really contributed tonight. Let's see. MLD, buddy. Hey, great stuff tonight. Where can everybody follow you?
Yeah, you guys can find me at MLD Ghost on Twitter, Gamertag Ghost MLD. Yeah, this was a pretty good chat. I think we can all agree this acquisition we just want it done one way or another. Yeah, let's talk about something else. Let's just talk about gaming. But yeah, it was still fun. Lots of fun.
Indeed, my friend, indeed. Moving on down here, Eric Shockley, pal. Hey, loved your insight. Where can everybody find you?
Yeah, as always, you can find me at ShockNero on Twitter, Easy Shock on Xbox Live. But yeah, good show tonight, especially with the week break we had. But yep, good. Everybody have a good night and good show today.
I agree wholeheartedly. Next up, we got Crusader. But hey, you really brought it. I know you got a lot on your mind. Where can everybody follow you?
Yeah, you can follow me at on Twitter, on Xbox, everything. Crusader3456 on all of it. PlayStation, Xbox, probably even on Switch. Might be my name on there. Probably should be. But yeah, it's a good show tonight. Had a good time.
Indeed, pal, indeed. Give it up for my Garrus Levin friend, guys. Give it up to him. Next up, we got Mr. Centurion, pal, hey, you had an awesome night as well. Where can all these fine people follow you?
For those interested, you can find me at Centurion1307, Xbox Live, Twitter, and of course, YouTube. I actually do have some new content coming out here this week. I already did all the filming. Now it's just the fun process of the hours of editing. And I have been chatting with Invader about it. I'm bad with names, sorry. Yes, you guys, the community will actually see my face for the first time. Yeah, this is weird to me, the fact that I'm gonna literally click on a camera and actually have somebody actually see what I look like, the man behind the mask. And I also brought a friend with me to this whole thing just to have some fun with it. For those also wanting to hear more podcasting with me, you can find me here every Sunday night on this amazing TXR podcast with this amazing group of gentlemen. And you can also find me on Gaming Beyond the Box 2 hours before the start of this show with Wilmy Hood, Bomber, and the rest of the great crew over there.
Oh yeah, I caught a bit of that. Great crew you got there.
Oh yeah, and me and Stubbs are doing Plastic Platforms tomorrow. So it's 2:00 my time. That may be 4 p.m. Eastern. There we go.
All right, I look forward to it. I'll definitely tune in for that. Love you and Stubbs going live. And to cap off the crew, you can find my content on YouTube over at Invader Gaming. I've been putting out a bunch of GoldenEye guides as of late, and card pack openings. I got some Warhammer cards to open quite soon. Looking forward to that. But yeah, keep your eyes peeled for more for me. And yeah, as it said in the chat, a lot of people looking forward to Atomic Heart. Guys, I am all on that. I cannot wait to play that. And hopefully I get some videos out for that as well. But just dying to play it. But yeah, fun talk tonight, folks. And we look forward to the next one. Later.